Thursday, September 24th, 2020. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of That's What G Said podcast. Loaded episode, tons to discuss. Week 3, NFL. Paul Bovi is going to join us to discuss every game on the Sunday slate. We're going to go through horse racing for Friday, Churchill Downs, Belmont, Santa Anita. Saturday, Churchill Downs, Belmont, Santa Anita, Stable Duel, contest building this week in Stable Duel. And then we go to the old wrestling rewatch. We've got a special treat for you this week. We've got Ralph Strangis, who was the former NHL commentator for the Stars. Ralph has done a ton of different things, but why we're talking about with him is because he was a part of the AWA Team Challenge Series, which we're going to talk about. We're in our old wrestling rewatch this week with Andrew Champagne and Darin Zoccali. So tons on the menu. And coming up this weekend, we've got a Stable Duel contest for free for the first time. You've heard me talk all about Stable Duel, the daily horse racing contests. Well, now this Saturday, versus Santa Anita, there is a free contest. If you've never played, if you want to get involved, this is a perfect time to do so. WWE has a big event this weekend. We won't talk about it on this show, but we'll talk about it next week. A couple big events. The baseball season finishes up. Early next week, we're going to have a baseball playoff preview. Mike Abadir is going to join me to preview the baseball season. We have the NBA Conference Finals, which are still currently underway. Lakers are up 2-1. Miami is up 3-1 on the other side. I'm recording this before the Game 4 of the Lakers and the Nuggets, so we will talk all about NBA next week, and we will be previewing whatever teams are going to be in the NBA Finals opening weekend this weekend coming up at Santa Anita. Just a huge, huge week, again, in the world of sports. So baseball, yeah, we'll get into a big baseball preview next week, and we'll talk a lot more basketball on the next show also. We'll see what happens over the weekend, and we'll recap it, and then hopefully get you set up for an NBA final preview. But now we're going to get right into NFL Week 3 with Paul Bovi. Paul is a very, very sharp gambler, handicapper. You've heard him on this show a couple times before. Paul handicaps everything, covers a lot of different sports, but in particular, he's excellent when it comes to football. He is very good with keeping an eye on numbers, movement. We went through every game. We discussed them all. We set them all up for you. Games that he's played, some props that he's looked at, just overall discussion on all the games, all the teams. It was a lot of fun. We spent about an hour talking everything NFL Week 3. Kick back and enjoy Paul Bovi on That's What G Said. NFL Week 3. So we're starting to get a little bit more information now. Not quite the overreaction. We're sort of reacting to the overreactions. And one of the sharpest people that you'll ever hear on the That's What G Said podcast does some stuff for Vegas Insider. This is a gentleman who has been handicapping, gambling for quite some time. And you can talk with him about probably any sport and really get a very sharp opinion. Talking about Paul Bovi. Paul, how you doing today?
Good. Are you trying to insinuate that I'm old, Gino? I've been doing this a long time.
This is the nicest possible way of saying you're over the hill. That was what I should have just said right off the bat. Hey. Paul, always love talking with you. And hey, I mean, before we even get into Week 3, I got to say, for someone who I know is a sports fan in general like you, and you play and you handicap and you gamble on different things, have we ever imagined a time period like this? I mean, it's unfortunate what happened throughout the year to where we had, sickness and pandemic, and we had these sports that had to get pushed back. But we are having a month or so right now where we've got hockey playoffs, we've got the basketball playoffs, we've got baseball just about to start the playoffs, football season is going, and college football has gone. We got a Preakness race coming up next week. We've got PGA, golf, big, huge events, tennis events that have all been pushed back into this month to 6 week span. Have you ever seen anything like this?
No, and it sounds like the NBA is going to need the Lakers in the finals.
Yeah, they will. They will.
If they have to go against the NFL and the MLB playoffs, with the Denver Nuggets against the Miami Heat, it could be problematic for
People
ratings.
would forget that's even on. They would. They really would. And so, yeah, if we wouldn't, we've seen it happen in the NBA a time or two. We wouldn't be surprised to see. You and I are recording this early on Thursday. If Thursday night maybe Jokic gets a couple early fouls and he's out of the game, or maybe Murray picks up a cheap one or two, I wouldn't be too shocked to see something like that happen as the Lakers try to go up 3-1. But that's that scary number against Denver when you get up 3-1. We've seen a couple teams fall when they do that. But anyways, Paul, so first couple weeks of the NFL, how have things been going for you? Last week, just overall, we have a ton of injuries every year at the beginning, but it felt like with the major names last week and some of they're done for the year injuries, that was one of the worst weeks I can remember.
Yeah, the injuries are really piling up, and from a handicapping perspective, you have to sit on these injuries. Friday tends to be a day of reckoning, and you get a good idea of who's going to be playing, who's not going to be playing. But right now, there's quite a few guys on the bubble, and I'm not just speaking about the marquee positions, which most people look at, but you're talking about offensive linemen, and you're talking about defensive backs, and those guys are just as critical as those key positions. Quarterback Tyrod Taylor goes out, Justin Herbert steps in, kind of a plug-and-play situation where there's not much of a talent disparity there. But when you have defensive backs out, offensive linemen out, that's where the public doesn't take that into account, doesn't take it as seriously. And as a handicapper, as a bettor, you have to really study those situations.
And so since we're recording this Thursday, we're not going to really talk about the Thursday game because we won't really have enough time to get it out. People listen, and I'd rather just talk about the Sunday game. So the first game we're going to start with is a team that sort of fits the billing you were just discussing. It's the San Francisco 49ers coming off that Super Bowl loss last year and the Super Bowl sort of hangover team that we always talk about. They're playing the Giants, and they are playing at New York. And this is an interesting situation because San Francisco actually played there last week. They decided to stay on the East Coast for the week. They've actually been staying in West Virginia, but they have been decimated by injuries. They are about a 4-point favorite or so right now. Looks like the over-under is around 41.5 or so. And San Francisco, at one point last week, was playing without their starting quarterback, I think without their top 2 running backs, without their top 2 wide receivers, without their starting tight end, and basically the best player on their team, and maybe the best player in all of football, Kittle. They were playing without their 2 best defensive linemen and maybe one of the top 3 or 4 defensive linemen in the league, Bosa. They were playing without Sherman, who is, one of the 10 best players on their team. So when you talk about a team that has been hit with the injury bug, this is the number 1 team in the NFL.
Yeah, and you make some great points there, Gino. On a good note, on a positive note for the 49ers, George Kittle is on track to play, and that's really going to help out their offense, and Nick Mullins, who's going to fill in for Jimmy G. But I'm going to just expound upon that by saying the gravity of injuries is something, particularly on defense, that I haven't seen in quite some time. They lost DeForest Buckner in free agency to the Colts, and he had 7.5 sacks last year, racked up 7.5. And then you have now Nick Bosa out, and as well as Solomon Thomas. Dee Ford looks like he's going to be out again. If you add up the sacks that those guys contributed last year to the 48 that they had racked up, it's 25 sacks. So the pressure, I think, on Daniel Jones will be certainly diminished this week. That's going to help out a Giants team that has struggled with pass protection. He was sacked 38 times last year in 14 games. I think they're going to be able to move the football. Now, for the 49ers on the offensive side, they lose Mostert, they lose Tevin Coleman, and now you have Jerick McKinnon, who will be filling in. McKinnon's been out for since 2018. He suffered a devastating injury, couldn't come back last year. He had a setback, so he carried the ball 3 times on Sunday, did break off a 55-yard run, which led to a touchdown. The 49ers, outside of big plays, really didn't do too much last week on offense, although the scoreboard may reflect differently with 31 points. It was a Mostert run, first play from scrimmage, 80 yards, and that run from McKinnon, 55. And the Jets are a feudal team.
They're bad. They're just bad. Yeah.
Yeah, and they didn't have their best receiver last week in Crowder, and now they're going to be without Perriman this week, it looks like. They're just a mess.
Yeah, they are.
They're a complete and total mess. But I really think the Giants have a good shot in this game. The Giants arguably could have won their first two games, if not for a late turnover by Daniel Jones in that first loss to the Steelers late in the third quarter. They had a shot to beat Pittsburgh. And then last week, they had the Bears on their heels the entire second half. There was some misconnections, drop passes, an interception, a fumble by Daniel Jones. He is very turnover prone. If he can take care of the football, I think they're going to win this game, Gino.
I think they got a big shot here, too. I really do. Because last week was the week it felt like there were a lot of kind of sharps that wanted to hit the 49ers and get the Jet side. But we just said the Jets are so bad. They just can't move the ball at all. And this 49ers team is decimated even more by injuries a week later than they were. I think they're going to be, like you said, they're not going to try to do too much with Mullins there. They're going to be very conservative. And I don't mind. This is something when you miss Barkley for the whole season, that's probably going to hurt the Giants. And it's going to hurt Jones in the long run. But in a game or two, in a situation like this where you have someone like Dion Lewis, they're also going to bring in Freeman. They also have Gallman. They actually have three backs. That's not a horrible situation. There are other backfields that wouldn't mind trading and taking those three backs. They're capable. So I completely agree with you. I think the Giants have a big shot in here to win this game straight up. The lines out there right now, they're about, what do you got, like about +4?
Yeah, it's been flipping back and forth between 4.5. I saw a 3.5 out there, and 49ers are being slightly overvalued here just because they're key. NFC champions, San Francisco 49ers. But if you peel back the onion a little bit and look at those injuries, I think these teams are closer to even on a neutral field, just because of the gravity of the devastating injuries that the 49ers have to deal with.
Let's get to game number 2. We've got the Cleveland Browns against the Washington football team. Cleveland right now is -7, about 7 or so. The over-under around 45 in here. So the Browns are a very interesting team because they were the hot buzz team last year. When they drafted Baker at the end of his rookie year, they have that really good run at the end. He's moving, he's flying, he's all cocky, he's having fun. And then last year, they were the buzz team. Everybody jumped on them. They made a couple trades. They brought in Odell, new coaching staff, probably one of the worst coaching staffs put together maybe in the history of football. Some of the things they were doing last year were just laughable. And then it looked like week 1, sort of a similar thing, but they did play Baltimore, who is one of the best teams in football. They come back in week 2, and they played a Cincinnati Bengals team that, they're probably not going to win a whole lot of games this year. Burrow is good. They can move the ball a little bit. This is an interesting team to me this year, and this is one of these, I won't say like a big game for Cleveland, but if they have any, semblance or thought of sneaking into a wild card team, being an over 500 team that is taking steps forward, taking strides forward, they have to win these games. I look up and I see Cleveland and teams like Cleveland and Arizona heavy favorites. It's just a little different. They're favored by a touchdown here. Where do you lean, or do you have any thoughts on this game?
Well, I'm not big on this game. I'm not one to lay a lot of points with teams that have question marks or bad teams. But I think Washington is a tad overrated at this point on the strength of that opening win. I had Washington that game. Mm-hmm. Dare I say the Redskins? I understand that's okay. So I've got to train. It's like it took me 10 years to stop saying the Washington Bullets. Now I have to deal with the Washington Redskins.
Yeah, and it's the same thing with the San Diego. How many times I say San Diego for them? Vegas, it's gonna take a couple years to get used to that one too. So we know it. It's like the muscle memory. It's tough to get out of that habit. But no, you're right. I think people are sort of overvaluing that Eagles win. We've looked and seen the Eagles haven't been that great. They've not really had a full team. This is sort of what the Eagles do now the last few years, where they sort of lose to bad teams and then they can compete and beat a good team or two here and there.
Yeah, I don't think Washington's very good. I'm not a big Haskins fan. Give credit to Terry McLaurin last week, 7 catches, 125 yards. But I think Cleveland is the better team. They have a strong running game, and they'll win the game. The question is, will they be able to cover the 7 points? So I'm probably going to stay away from this one.
Me too. It feels like a low scoring sort of Cleveland just going to try to run the ball, like you said, and I could see Washington like late cover with some late score here. I think Cleveland wins, but I'll stay away. Let's get to game number 3. Patriots-Raiders. Interesting game here. Patriots are -6 against the Raiders. Over under here 47.5, 48 around there. And we have the Raiders coming off their big win on Monday night. We have the Patriots coming off that very tight loss on Sunday night. So two teams where a lot of eyeballs were on them over the last week. And that's generally an interesting thing when it comes to the lines, because when you have these teams that are coming off the Sunday night or Monday night games where everybody sees them, the numbers will move a little bit one way or the other. But I guess in this case, we have two teams that everybody saw last week. Where do you stand on this Patriots team early on, 2 weeks through with the new QB, Cam Newton?
Well, I'm not drinking the Cam Newton Kool-Aid just yet.
I'm not either. Yeah, I'm not quite either.
I understand he had an impressive performance on Sunday night, but looking a little beyond that, the Seahawks did give up 100 yards plus receiving, well over, to 3 different receivers in game 1. So Edelman comes back and basically does what the Atlanta receivers did, racks up 179 yards, impressive performance. But I want to see more out of Cam Newton, who you can make an argument that with taking out that MVP year, he's been an average passer at best. Mm-hmm. He's maybe a 58% passer. So I want to see more. He does look rejuvenated, but this much I could say as far as how the game will play out. The Raiders are not going to get a free roll with Darren Waller catching passes over the middle, all over the field. Not with Bill Belichick. He had 10 catches or 12 catches against New Orleans. It was an embarrassing performance for the Saints defense.
It was probably the most pathetic game I've seen them play in a while. From the defense to the coaching, they made a couple coaching blunders, to just the sloppiness overall, the penalties over and over. It just looked like a bad New Orleans performance altogether. Paul, I really wanted to play against both of these teams this week, but they're playing each other, because I've kind of wanted to play against New England, and I kind of wanted to play against the Raiders off their big win. But now in a situation like this is probably going to be a game where I just sit and watch and maybe just try to pile a little more information on both these teams.
Well, I'm going to say this, okay? So if they take away Waller and he comes back down to earth, hauls in 4 or 5 passes, now it's going to be incumbent upon Henry Ruggs and Brian Edwards and Hunter Renfrow over the middle. And those first 2 guys are rookies. Now, I'm not going to say that those rookies are going to exploit a New England secondary with Gilmore. Yeah. I don't think you're going to see the Raiders score more than 17 points here. I think they're overvalued based on that game the other night. Now, I'm taking nothing away from the Raiders. I love what they did. They were down early. It looked like it was going to be a blowout, and they kept fighting, and they were dominating the game in the third quarter. And there's no question. They were the better team on Monday night, but New England, Bill Belichick, they'll get the better of it. It's probably going to go under. I would lean that way. I would lean to a New England victory, but would I give 6.5 points? Probably not.
Yep, I feel very similar to you. I think New England's going to get the better here, and it feels like both teams will try to run the ball a lot, and I think it goes under. But I'm very curious about this game. This is one of the games that I like this week. There are a couple really intriguing games, and this is one of them. We move to 4th game on the Sunday slate, Atlanta versus the Bears. Atlanta's -3, again at home playing the Bears, 47.5 the over-under in here. So the Bears now at 2-0, Atlanta at 0-2, but we have the 0-2 team favored at home over the 2-0 team. And when they have these conversations, you hear it on a lot of talk shows throughout the week. After week 2, who is the best 0-2 team? Who is the worst 2-0 team? The Bears have been the team that everybody's been talking about as the worst 2-0 team. They've gotten better play from Trubisky this year, no doubt about it, but they needed an absolute collapse and a drop pass in game 1 from Detroit to win that game. And you talked about how the Giants had them on the ropes and had an opportunity to win that game last week also. So this is a team that very easily could be 0-2, and they took a step back after the really good defense they had a couple years ago. Their defense is still their strength, but offensively, you always have question marks. They're inconsistent. Where do you stand with this Bears team?
Well, Mitch Trubisky, those first 2 touchdowns were on broken plays. He escaped the pocket. One of them was to the running back. The other one was to the receiver in coverage on a scramble. I think they were fortunate to rack up those 2 touchdowns and take a 17-0 lead into the break, I believe it was. Mm-hmm. But you got to look at the Falcons right now because you've got major injuries to Fowler and McKinley, the defensive ends. If they don't play as well as Casey, who's racked up 11 tackles this year, and he's question mark, I think they're going to have some problems defensively, and I think I would probably, if those guys were sitting, look towards the over. I think there would be some points scored. Atlanta certainly has weapons. Can't take that away from them. Mm-hmm. Between Ridley and Julio Jones and now Russell Gage, who I played over in terms of catches and receiving yards on Sunday, they've got a 3-headed monster out there in terms of receiver. I'm not sold on Todd Gurley. I don't think it was a good signing, and I think eventually he'll be replaced. But you can't argue with their passing game, and I would give them an edge if everybody's healthy, and they would probably win by 7 to 10 points.
Yeah, this is one of the games that I don't love, but I feel with you. I prefer Atlanta, and I would lean over in this spot. But as you mentioned, keep an eye on the injuries in the next couple days because those injuries on the defensive end for Atlanta would actually even make us lean more over in that spot. Eagles, Bengals. Eagles -5 against the Bengals, 46.5 or so looks like the total right now. So the Eagles are 0-2, and you don't want to go to 0-3 in the NFL. We see all sorts of numbers and statistics that tell us how near impossible it is to make the playoffs after going 0-3, although a lot of those are going to probably be out the window this year because of the extra playoff spot. So we'll have to have a few years of using the new playoff system to kind of get new numbers and see. This Eagles team feels like they need a win here, but again, we look at they are always banged up. When is the last time this Eagles team has been healthy? It puts Wentz in a situation where he tries to do too much. He tries to force it too much. I was listening to a really good take on Wentz, and they were talking about how he was so successful and so efficient in their Super Bowl run year, and they were completing all these crazy long third downs, that he's kind of gotten to a situation where he tries to force things a little too much. And when you don't have your players out there, you feel like you really have to force things. They're in a tough spot here because, you got a Bengals team that's got really nothing to lose, and Burrow's starting to figure it out. He threw, I think, 60 times last week and didn't throw a pick. It feels like the Eagles got to win this game. Where do you stand on this one?
You make some good points about Wentz, Gino, and they suffered another injury because Jalen Reagor on the IR. Alshon Jeffrey's out. Deshaun Jackson will play, resting from practice yesterday. But Wentz made some very poor throws. I mean, this was a 21-16 game at halftime, and they could not crack the end zone in the second half, much to my chagrin because I had the Eagle team total over 23. And I was very disappointed in the performance, and it was Wentz. I put it on his back. Now, their run defense wasn't very good on Sunday, and they've been struggling, in my opinion, all over the field. Tough spot for them. It is. I do think they're going to win this game, but I love what Joe Burrow has done thus far. He's really looked like the real deal. Mm-hmm. And I think this guy, you look out 5 years and you say, will Justin Herbert be playing in the NFL, Mitch Trubisky in the NFL? And you're like scratching your head and you say, maybe, but Joe Burrow is going to be around for a long time. And he makes good decisions for the most part. And they got a solid running game. I think Mixon is going to have a big game here as long as they stay within 10 points because the Eagles have been vulnerable against the run. I personally played this at over 45. I think I've got some value in the number now. I think last check it was 46 and a half.
Mm-hmm.
I do think there'll be some points here.
Yeah, this is, again, pretty similar. I think the Eagles have to win this game, but that's what's nice about the Bengals. They're feisty. They're going to win a game or two that they shouldn't win this year because they can move the ball and because Burrow, he's got the it, like you said, the it factor that you look at the guy and you go, yeah, he is going to be one of those top 15 quarterbacks in the league. It's going to be around and win games for you for a while. You can just tell that intangible instantly, right away. And we still have to ask questions about a lot of guys. Like Baker, does he have it? Tannehill has sometimes this or that. There's, like you said, you mentioned Trubisky. Is he going to be around? You get the feeling instantly 2 weeks after Burrow, this guy is good. He reminds me sort of like a young Peyton. Just, you could see it. There were going to be struggles, but you know right away this guy makes the throws. So I love watching him play. As we move to Steelers versus Houston, the Steelers are -4 here against the Texans. The total in this one, I believe, is at 45 right now. And, man, talk about the poor Texans. Like, they played probably the two best teams in football right now in the first 2 weeks where they played Baltimore and Kansas City. And now week 3, they got to play one of the best defenses in football. So not the easiest start to the season for the Texans and another team that is generally in the playoff discussion, sort of like the Eagles. You feel like, man, going to 0-3 wouldn't be the best of situations for them, but they got a tough defense to face this week.
So you're sold on that defense then?
Pittsburgh?
Yeah.
You know what? I actually like the Texans in this spot. And I think where you're going, that the Pittsburgh defense is, last week, I was not quite as impressed with as actually both weeks, I got to be honest. Both teams moved the ball. Last week, a Driscoll was able to move the ball against them a little bit. I think they might lose this game. I really do. I think this is a big Watson game for me. Watson has to look at this game and say, we need this game to win. I got to be the best player on the field here. I got to move the sticks, pick up some first downs. We got to get Fuller back involved again and stretch the field. So I'm with you. I think Pittsburgh defense is good. I don't think they're as good as everybody else does.
I would agree with that, and that's where I was going with this. I look at those two games. Now, look, Cortland Sutton didn't play in the first game. He goes out with an injury against the Steelers. So now they're facing a receiving corps that consists of Judy, Hamler, Tim Patrick, and Noah Fant. In the first week, Daniel Jones had success.
You talked about the interception he threw. If he doesn't, they're going into either, it was 16-10, and they're driving. They're on the 3-yard line. If they score, they take the lead. The Giants take the lead there. What happens is he throws an interception, and then following the interception, as Pittsburgh's driving down, they fumble the ball. There were 4 Giants around where they had an opportunity to pick up the ball, and Juju somehow gets it, and then Pittsburgh's able to score. If the Giants get one of those two plays, if they either don't make the turnover or get the fumble and then just come back down and they're in close to field goal range immediately if they get the fumble, that's a whole different game. I played against the Steelers a lot last year, and I was expecting a little bit more of them this year. Now they won 2-0, but again, they could have lost either of those games. They really could have. And I think if you watch the games through, you go back on Game Pass and watch them, they're the type of team I think that play always with Tomlin. I have questions about his execution, his in-game adjustments, and they always seem to play to their opponents, up or down. I think they play with the best teams, and they play down to the worst teams.
Yeah, and Ben Roethlisberger, the stats look great on Sunday, 29-41 for 311, but there was an 84-yard completion in there. First week, he had 220 yards. So it remains to be seen, number one, if he could survive the entire year, because he's only played a full season 4 times in his, I think it's, 16-year career?
Yeah.
Came in the league in 2004. And the defense, right now, Gino, the jury is out. I want to see better. And the number, which opened up at 6, is now at 4. So there are people that share my opinion, your opinion, that maybe you look at the Steelers and you don't know what you're going to get. But I would tend to take this Texan team because they obviously have a new receiving corps this year, and it's going to take time to mesh. and I believe Watson will get it right. And I just don't see the Texans at 0-3.
I don't either.
And I don't see the Steelers at 3-0.
Yeah, it's weird. It's simple. It sounds simple, but I agree with you. The Texans have always been this like Jekyll and Hyde sort of back and forth team in the last couple of years with Watson too, where they'll win 2, they'll lose 2, they'll win. They very rarely they don't lose 3 in a row, they don't win 3 in a row. They're just that kind of a team. They've been that team for a while now. I think you're going to get some big plays from Watson. I really do. I think he's going to step up. What it feels to me with the Steelers defense is that they are in certain spots, they have some of the best players in the league in maybe 3 or 4 spots. And so we kind of feel like their whole defense as a whole is excellent, but the other spots are just average to below average. So of course, when you have a Watt and some players that are in the top 10 defensively, a couple, it raises the profile of your defense. But yeah, I'm with you. I'm against Pittsburgh this week. I think Houston's got a big opportunity to win. This is a game I'd even look at. Money line, anything over the 3.5 would be fine. 4, great. But we know which side we're on, so we want to get the best number that we possibly could. But this is a big Watson game for me. It really is. And just like you said, now you've got it. He started to figure out Cobb a little bit and Cooks last week. And he already knows Fuller, and Fuller was hurt, and so he had nothing last week. You put all 3 of them in the game together, and David Johnson's been a little bit better. They've got some weapons. If they have a full complement out there this week with Watson, that's not going to be easy for the Steelers to stop.
Yeah, I agree. And remember, Slayton had 6 catches in the first game for 102 yards. Tate did not play. Sterling Shepard, 6 targets, 6 receptions, 47. So this pass defense, which was untested in week 2, as I alluded to, didn't do a great job in week 1 against the Giants and Daniel Jones. So I'm going to look for the Texans as you are. I'm going to look for a win. I'm going to look for a 1-2 Texan team after this week and for them to get back in the race for the division.
Yeah, I agree. I haven't been too. It's a wide open division in there. Nobody in that division, it feels like, is going to run away and hide with it. But one of the teams who is in the best shape right now is Tennessee. They are currently a 2.5-point favorite against Minnesota, who has looked like one of the worst teams in the league. Tennessee is at Minnesota as a 2.5-point favorite on the road. Total in this game is up to 49.5 because that Minnesota defense and the secondary in particular has just looked atrocious. Tennessee gave up 30 points to Jacksonville last week. And one of the issues with Tennessee, I think we have to discuss, we don't talk a whole lot about kickers when we're breaking the games down, but with a team like this who's had 2 weeks so far and massive kicker issues, they had kicker issues all through last year. And Gostkowski feels like he's going to miss a bunch of the kicks, but he's going to make the game winners. He's done it back-to-back weeks now. So anytime there's a game that's tight like this, you get a little worried. They miss a field goal, they miss another field goal, and then all of a sudden, if you need Tennessee and you're given a few points, you might be in some trouble. This Minnesota team has looked bad, and I don't know if they're going to be able to get it together quickly. Where do you stand in this game?
Well, you made references secondary, and that's why I was all over Green Bay in the first game. They made a decision at the beginning of the year. Look, we're going to get rid of our entire secondary. They gutted everybody, and they brought in rookies from the 1st, 3rd, 5th, and 7th round and plugged them in. And that's not a good recipe for success against Aaron Rodgers and Devonta Adams. And he exploited it.
And then throw in the pandemic year too, right? A year where there's no training camp, there's no preseason games. You have everything in a completely different speed up, ramp up process. These guys got no reps. It's going to take them a while to get used to, NFL offenses picking on them.
Exactly. And it showed up in the first game. And Rivers' numbers last week weren't great. 19-25 for 214. But if you look at T.Y. Hilton's drop in the end zone,
yep.
It was a 40-plus yarder. It would have been a lot better, 20-26 for 250. So right now that pass defense is in a state of flux, and I think that has something to do with it. Tennessee lost some defensive backs. Adoree Jackson went on the IR. Malcolm Butler did not practice yesterday. He was questionable coming into Sunday. He ended up playing, but Minshew had a great game, and I had the over in the game at 42, and it soon went to 44.5 thereafter, and that was one of the games I was able to flip off at halftime. And I got 6 screens here, Gino, so I got to pick and choose, what do I want to eliminate? But they scored a lot of points, and 49. That's a top-heavy number considering the Minnesota offense has been pedestrian at best. They made a decision to get rid of Diggs, and Adam Thielen and B.C. Johnson are their number ones, and Justin Jefferson as well is in there. But I'm not. He's a first-round draft pick, but I'm not quite sure that that's the answer to their passing game. And Kirk Cousins, I think he needs more help. And he had 113 yards passing. I wouldn't go over 49. I mean, when numbers get away, and I think there's a little bit of exuberance built into these overs now because, everybody's puffing their chest out. Most people play overs. And look, the overs hit, 11-5 on Sunday? So these numbers are being pumped up to inflated levels, and this is the case of it.
Yeah, that's way too high. I mean, that thing's going to get to 50 too. We're in the next day or so, and I can't play Minnesota. As you said, they've been so bad. The Tennessee on the road is a fit, but this is a total I would look towards. And if this thing keeps creeping, I'm going to go the other way because I could just see both of these teams trying to run the ball too. And it just not being that much of a blowout. If Tennessee they know Minnesota's got a bad secondary, but what Tennessee does best is just running the ball. And if they're not going to have a strong version of A.J. Brown out there to throw it to, maybe they just say, hey, let's just pound them with Henry. And it's just a low, the clock just keeps running over and over. That could be the same thing in the Raiders game where you have teams that just want to run the ball and they end up trying to do so. We watch that number as it continues to creep up. Let's get to Bills-Rams. There has been so much weird movement in the Rams games these first couple of weeks with the numbers. This is a game where they are – so the Rams and the 49ers both are playing back-to-back games on the East Coast, but they did it differently. So we'll get to see maybe which works out or if there's a difference because the Rams traveled. They went to Philly. They came back, and now they're going back to Buffalo. And the Bills are a 2.5-point favorite here against the Rams. And I believe the total is, let's see, where are we on the total? 47.5? Yeah, 47.5 or so. Where do we stand on this one?
Well, this is the one I played early in the week. I played a couple totals on Sunday night. 47, I played it at 44.5, 45. I think a lot of this is going to hinge on the linebackers of the Bills, specifically Matt Milano and Tremaine Edmonds, who combined for 216 tackles last year. Now, they were out on Sunday, and it showed up defensively because Mike Gesicki for the Dolphins went off for 8 catches, 130 yards. Now, Gesicki is a good tight end, but he's not an 8-catch, 130-yard tight end guy. And now they have to face the Rams and Tyler Higbee. Now, since Tyler Higbee took over for Everett, he's averaged 7 catches a game, 90 yards a game. So this is going to be a challenge if these guys are out again this week. Right now, no injury status on them other than questionable. And you can't argue with what Josh Allen has done so far. 6 touchdowns. He's been very efficient, no interceptions, 70% completion rate. That offense has been upgraded immensely with Stephon Diggs because he makes John Brown and Cole Beasley better receivers, and he could spread the ball out. He could run. You got Singletary in the backfield. This is an offensive football team right now, and Bills have a decent defense with those linebackers. Without those linebackers, they're in trouble. The Rams, I don't look at their defense as being very solid. I think the Cowboys blew numerous opportunities in week 1, and they have been run against. I think it was 4.4 yards the first week, 4.8 yards the second week, no breakaway runs. I think both teams move the football. I look at this as an over game. That's why I played it. I'm not going to try to predict the winner here, but I will say that points should be scored.
Yeah, I'm going to lean. I'm a Rams fan, and I'm glad that they're 2-0, but I completely agree with what you've said. Watching both of those games, game one, obviously, Dallas missed a few opportunities, and then there was the chance late in the game with that offensive pass interference where the Rams very easily could have lost that game. And then week two, to me, just like you said earlier when we had the discussion about Carson Wentz, it was more Wentz making bad throws than it was the defense forcing him into that. Now, again, Donald is incredible, and he's going to be a nuisance, and he's going to be difficult, for any offensive line to deal with. But I like the Bills in this spot at anything under 3. And, I think they're going to win this game. I just think it's a third consecutive tough spot for the Rams, whereas the Bills played – this is the game they're going to be up for. This is probably the first game they circled on their schedule and said, okay, we should be able to get through the Jets and the Dolphins. And then when there's games like what happened last weekend, when it's one of those games where there's a weather delay and the game's delayed like an hour, I generally kind of take a lot of that, and it was close late, sure, but I don't really hold it that much against the Bills in that situation. They did what they needed to do, and like you said, the problem with this Bills team the last few years has been Josh Allen. Is he going to make the crucial turnover in a big moment? We saw him do it in the playoff game. We saw him do it against the Patriots last year in a big game. He feels like he's making better decisions. He's got more weapons now with Diggs. He's got someone where he can just sit back, throw the ball as far down the field, and Diggs will probably go and get it. Yeah, I like the Bills in this spot a little bit. I don't want to take anything more than 3. 2.5 is the number right now. That's the number I'd like to take. And, hey, if the Rammies go 3-0, as a fan of the Rams, I'd like to see it. I just think this isn't the travel again, back and forth. It feels like this is a week where the Rams come out a little bit flat. So give me the Bills in this spot. Let's get to the – yeah, go ahead.
I have the Bills to win the division. I have the Bills win total over, and I have the Rams win total under. So I was quite upset with that offensive pass interference penalty in game one.
Right.
Okay, and that's the one win total I'm losing right now. Everything else looks fantastic, but I need the Rams to lose this game. I need Buffalo to win, so I'll be rooting for you, Gino.
Okay, let's get the Bills home here. Let's move on to Colts versus the Jets. This game is up to 11.5. Colts were a really buzzy team. They picked up Phillip Rivers. They made a couple nice acquisitions on the defensive side of the ball, and they drafted a solid running back. They got beat week 1 by a team that many thought would be maybe the worst team in the league. Then they came back and they played a team that could be the worst team in the league right now, the Vikings, and they beat them up. So I guess we don't really know quite yet what this Colts team is, and look who they're going to play this week. I mean, the fact that they have to be 2-1. They probably are going to look back at the schedule and say, wow, how are we not 3-0, losing that game to the Jaguars in week 1. But this Jets team, I mean, I think I saw that Adam Gase said something during the week like, oh, now it's time to ramp things up into hyperdrive. Like, where the hell have you been before? Like what's been going on before this?
The Jets are in a lot of trouble. We know they're a bad football team, but now, as I mentioned before, in addition to Crowder being out, you got Perriman out, and now 3 offensive linemen are doubtful for this week. So 11.5, I'm not one to lay 11.5 in the NFL, but you would look at this and say this might be a bargain because the Jets are that bad. But, it's maybe a conservative line because Indy didn't look fantastic on Sunday, and you would think that the gravity of the Jets' performances might be not taken into account fully just because it's only 2 weeks into the season. And the Jets should have only had 6 points last week. I lost the total on that late touchdown, that miraculous touchdown by Sam Darnold as he escaped the pocket and just threw up a Hail Mary. But the Jets, I couldn't take the Jets here. The line has steamed up. It's now 11.5. There's 12s out there. But Indianapolis should win this game comfortably. And the only reason they could lose it is because of turnovers, as they did in that first game against the Jaguars, which you mentioned. And they never punted against the Jaguars. They moved the all day long.
They missed a 30-yard field goal in that game too. It was just like you said. If they don't hurt themselves, they're easily 3-0 right here after this game. And I just don't know how right now. As a bettor, we love playing numbers. I love playing numbers that have some value in them. I just cannot play right now the Vikings or this Jets team until I see a little bit of something from them and I have some sort of a reason. Let's get to the Chargers versus the Panthers. Man, Chargers played really well last week. And then we've heard all of this crazy stuff throughout the week about what happened with Tyrod Taylor as he apparently had some bruised ribs or cracked ribs after week 1. One of the doctors, the team doctors for the Chargers, went to give him an injection to ease the pain and ended up giving him a collapsed lung, which is something that I've actually had before, and I can promise you that is not something you want to go through. You think you're having a heart attack. I went to the hospital and had to have a tube in my chest, out of my chest for 3 straight days afterwards. So, Paul, where do you stand on this one?
Well, a lot of people are really emphasizing the fact that Justin Herbert came in, he had no practice, he didn't know, and sometimes that's actually easier than having to think about
100%. You don't even. He said he didn't know till 10 minutes before the game.
Right, and I actually took the Chargers Sunday, and I don't think I would have done it had I known Justin Herbert was going to play. I wanted Tyrod Taylor, and it didn't work out. Although the second half, I think they gifted that game to the Chiefs more than anything else. And there was a point in that game, and I'm sure you recall it vividly, when Justin Herbert could have ran for a first down and instead elected to throw the ball downfield at the 10-yard line, and it was intercepted. And that, to me, flipped the whole game around.
Changed everything.
Yeah, everything. It would have been first down at the 30-yard line. And then I thought the play calling was absurd because they were stacking the box and basically saying, you're not going to run the ball up the middle. We're going to make Justin Herbert beat us. And whoever was calling the plays, Anthony Lynn, I don't know. But they just ran it straight into the line. First down at the 3-yard line, they come away with a field goal. They got stopped. It was very painful to watch. It was a game. I rarely get upset, but that was a game that I really got upset at because the Chargers should have won that game. They ran for 180 yards. There were no breakaway runs. The Chiefs were playing a rookie cornerback, and that's part of the reason Justin Herbert had some success. Now, Carolina is not a bad football team. They have a lot of injuries, though, on the defensive line. They've got this Short didn't practice, and Brian Burns was limited in practice, and Matos was also limited. So you got to look at the injury report here. But I would take the points with the Carolina Panthers. They didn't look all that bad against the Raiders and against the Saints. They almost covered. I would take the Panthers with the points, but I would also defer to the injury report to see who is and who is not going to be playing.
Yeah, this is a sneaky game because, you look at it, it's Chargers minus 6.5 right now, Panther versus the Panthers 44. And coming off of that game where they played so well against the Chiefs, it feels like everybody would want to take the Chargers this week because this Panthers team is banged up. No McCaffrey. As you mentioned, they've got some defensive issues. They look like their defense is probably one of the worst defenses in the league. I think they do have some talent around, but with the injuries right now, they haven't shown it. Yeah, this game's a sneaky one to me. I'm going to keep an eye on the injuries. I'm going to wait to see if this number moves around a lot at all. It's been pretty steady at about 6.5 for a while here, as you could hear the gardener outside starting the lawn mowing. He's not supposed to start till 11:30, Paul. So I'm pretty upset. I'm gonna have to talk to this guy in a minute because we got some deals. We got some deals going. But nonetheless, give me, like I said, a day or two to see where this number goes because I feel like with CMC out, with the way the Chargers played well last week, this would probably be up to 7.5, 8. But since it's still at 6.5, it's just a little sneaky in here. And so, yeah, this is a game I'm going to keep an eye on. Let's move to Tampa. We're going to get to Tampa minus 6 at Denver. Total in this is 43.5. You mentioned injuries. Denver is another team that's been really banged up on the defensive side of the ball. They're also going to be missing their quarterback. Cortland Sutton was another one who's missed some spots. So What have you thought so far, a couple weeks through with Tom Brady in Tampa, and what are some of your thoughts on this matchup?
Look, it's a work in progress over there, and Tom Brady is still a great quarterback. He's a great talent. Obviously, at this age, you have to feel his skill set is in decline. But look, they're going to have all their receivers together hopefully this week, and Mike Evans and Scotty Miller and Chris Godwin. And look, they should score some points here. It's not a game I'm going to be betting. It's one of these situations where I'm going to take a wait and see. Maybe I'll get involved live, but certainly Tampa should win the game. They have more talent, in my opinion, on both sides of the ball, especially considering the injuries. And they're going up against Jeff Driscoll. I mean, you have to feel that Tampa Bay should be able to exploit that and wreak some havoc on Jeff Driscoll, because look, he's not a seasoned quarterback. He doesn't have a ton of experience, and you've got Tom Brady on the other side.
He doesn't have a ton of weapons either. We'll see what happens with someone like Lindsey would be so nice, just as a little safe help, and we'll see if he's going to be involved. I couldn't get to Denver. I don't really want to play Tampa given the 6 on the road. So this is another one where I'm like you. I'll just be watching. Total is 43.5 here. Let's get to Seattle versus Dallas. Seattle -5 against Dallas over-under. You talked about over-unders that are getting pumped up. The last 4 games that we're going to talk about, 55.5, 55, 52.5, and 54.5. So these numbers are way up there, Paul. Seattle -5 against a Dallas team that made a crazy comeback, secured an onside kick in a new way where they had the ball not on the tee spinning around, and they sort of baited the Falcons defenders, and that was a crazy game and a crazy comeback. And then you got Russell Wilson, who's been playing incredible, and Seattle's playing a little differently this year. They're throwing the ball, and they're a little more aggressive. They're not just pounding the run. We think about Seattle, and we always think about defense, but that's really not this Seattle team anymore.
I think the Cowboys are in a lot of trouble here. They lost Awuzie at cornerback this week, and they had already lost Byron Jones to the Dolphins, and now they have Diggs at the other corner who might be out. Now, if Diggs is out, you've got C.J. Godwin going in there, who's 30 years old, and in his career he has 37 tackles and 2 passes defended, and that should tell you all you need to know. They already lost Van Der Esch and Sean Lee. Sean Lee is noted to be injury-prone, but he played all 16 games last year. DeMarcus Lawrence is questionable. If you watch that Ram game, which I know you did, the Rams, it was just a lot of dump-offs, and there was just nobody in the picture. And then, look, Atlanta just collapsed last week. There's no way Dallas is going to be able to handle Russell Wilson, who's trying to make a statement, and Seattle's offense. On the other side, you've got that Seattle defense. Major liabilities there, and they just lose Bruce Irwin. And they also lost a safety this week to injury. But they have an offense, but their defense has been a sieve. It was a sieve against Atlanta. I alluded to the fact that you had 3 receivers in the first game well over 100 yards. And last week, Edelman, 8 catches, $179. There should be points here. If there's a game that maybe people will be scared off of because the number is so high, this could be it. But they should easily go over this number.
I don't see how they stop Seattle at all. I'm with you. I just don't see how they stop them at all. And Dallas offensively has pieces. They've got Lamb now, who's just another weapon for them. So they're going to have 3 solid receivers. They have another tight end. Dallas is going to move the ball and score points always. When they lose, they're not going to lose because they get shut out. They're going to lose because their defense can't stop anybody, which we've seen, through 2 weeks too. I completely agree with you. I just don't know how both of these teams will go back and forth and back and forth. I think Seattle probably wins by 2 scores, but it's like they're going to just take turns scoring and scoring and scoring. I'm really impressed with Seattle. I just would love, because I trust and I believe in Russ so much, and I think they have some nice weapons now. If they are able to shore up that defense at all in the next few weeks, or make a move or some kind of an adjustment, I'm going to be very, very high on them the rest of the season because this feels like a sort of a Russ type season. They're quote unquote letting Russ cook right now, and he is no doubt one of the few on the short list for early season MVP through just a few games. Let's get to the final 3 games we have on the menu for Sunday and then the Monday night game. So we have Arizona -5. I believe it's 5.5 now versus Detroit. Over under in this game is 55. Arizona trying to go to 3-0. Detroit could be 0-3, and their record with Patricia is absolutely atrocious. They blew week 1. This was actually the week 1 game last year when Detroit had that big lead. They ended up blowing it, and these two teams tied. So the Cardinals now, pretty quickly, pretty early on, they are becoming a team that is a pretty heavy favorite. I think they were a 7-point favorite last week. They're going to be around a 6-point favorite again this week. A team that was a bad team for a few years is now back, and I get Vegas and a lot of people feel like this is a playoff team.
One thing I could tell you, Gino, the public is going to be all over Arizona this week. And the number has been sitting at 5.5, 6. And I question why the number is still at 5.5, 6. Now, I know one reason Kenny Golladay will be back in the lineup. Huge for Detroit because he's been lacking. Matt Stafford has weapons. T.J. Hawkinson seems to be his number one target. And you need more than that.
Yeah, because Marvin Jones and Amendola, those guys are slotted in as like 2 and 3. They're fine. But when they have to move up a tier and become your 1 and your 2, then you're in trouble.
Exactly. So I do think that if Golladay is in the lineup and he's fully healthy and at 100%, Detroit could score 24 points. Patrick Peterson is a very capable corner. He's been around for a while. I don't think he's quite as good as what he was 3 years ago. Is Arizona overvalued right now? Possibly a tad. I had him the first week against the Niners, and I just think that offense in that first week for San Francisco was very stagnant.
And they match up well against San Francisco. The good defenses in San Francisco in particular struggles a little with the running quarterback. Even last year, Murray did really well against them. So that was a good matchup. You could just tell that they were going to play well against them.
Yeah, and Arizona plays Washington the next week, and of course, everybody looks good against Washington. Even the Eagles look good against them. They just didn't win the game. So this is a game where actually Detroit can stay in the game. Now, I'm not impressed with their secondary, and I'm not impressed with their run defense. But I do think they can score 24 points here. And if they score 24 points, they got a shot to cover the game, 27-24, 28-24, something like that, if Golladay plays. But their rush defense was horrible against Aaron Jones. And they were supposed to have a pretty tough defensive line. They just have not looked good. But the number, as I said, it's hanging around this area where they're going to suck in a lot of money on the favorite. And so I wonder who's betting the Lions right now, because somebody is.
Mm-hmm. And it's not the random fan. It's the sharp that's betting them. It's not the everyday person. Why are you betting Detroit off of those 2 weeks? They got the crap kicked out of them. They're playing against a team where Kyler should be able to run. On paper, it feels like you said, this is just one of those numbers games where Golladay coming back could make this team so much different than what we saw. Just give them weapons and options that they did not have in weeks 1 and 2. And this, this is another little thing built in. I mean, I don't think Patricia's a very good coach. We've obviously seen that. But if he's got anything left that he hasn't pulled out, this is the time right now. He does not have a whole lot of time because he gets to 0-5, he's done. They'll get rid of him right away. He's got to win a couple games here early in the season or at least be competent. This was a team that, again, like last year, they were sort of buzzy. I know Football Outsiders had them, and they were really high on them in DVO, and where they were projecting them, and a lot of people again were assuming, okay, Stafford coming back this year, they've got to look better in this Week 3 game against Arizona. Let's get to the Sunday night game. It is the Saints against the Packers. Saints -3 versus the Packers. Saints lost in that home opener for Vegas, and now they head back home off of the like you said, an embarrassing loss. I mean, from a coaching standpoint, they didn't look good. Defensively, they got shredded. They did not, like Drew Brees did not look very good, and he looked sort of lost without Thomas out there. All they could do was force feed Kamara, and penalties. They were just awful and undisciplined and sloppy. So then you come back this week, you play a Packers team who's looked really, really good through 2 weeks and has just scored and scored and scored and scored. This total is up at 52.5, Saints -3 against the Packers.
I played under, Gino, because I just think this total's a little bit pumped up, especially considering Devonta Adams might not play. He
and Michael Thomas. Yeah, you got the top wide receivers out.
Yeah, it makes absolutely no sense to me, because a couple weeks ago we were talking about how anemic the Packers wide receivers were, and why they didn't draft a wide receiver in the first round and drafted Love instead. Didn't give Aaron Rodgers any help. This team just barely tipped 20 points a game the last 4 weeks of the season. And all of a sudden, they're the second coming of the 1999 Rams. It doesn't make any sense to me, because Aaron Rodgers went against two very weak secondaries. We've already covered the Lions secondary and the Vikings secondary, so we won't belabor that. But they're going against a defensive backfield now that has been penalized for interference penalties in the first couple games, but they are talented. And if Devonta Adams doesn't play, and even if he does, I think Aaron Rodgers is going to come back down to earth here, and he'll have to struggle for points instead of like drinking out of a fire hose. So I think the Packers will see 20, 21 points here, and the Saints, we already talked about their offensive woes, Drew Brees, Michael Thomas. And Drew Brees, as a quarterback, he tends to run the clock because he completes 75% of his passes. So you don't get the stoppages that you would with a normal quarterback that completes 60% of his passes. I don't see this as being a 52.5-point game, especially with the injury situation. This thing should be sitting at 49 at best. And so I went under the total for value.
Completely agree. I'm going to go under the total here. I think what makes the most sense for both of these teams in this spot is to run the ball. It just does. Like, you're going to run the ball with Kamara. You got Murray there too. And Jones has been awesome. So continue to run the ball with Jones, especially if you're missing Adams. And, they're going to be missing Thomas on the other side. And we saw that they didn't really have, just very similar with what we were talking about with Detroit on both of these teams. There's not another guy on either of these receiving core that can step up and be number one wide receiver. The rest of them are 2s and 3s. We saw that with Emmanuel Sanders and the other receivers on the New Orleans side. And just like you said with the receivers on the Green Bay side, we've been talking for a while about how weak their receiving core is. Now without Adams, they're going to have a 1 there? No. So I think they both run the ball. I see this sort of like you, 24-21. Something like that, where I think it's a close game. I do think these teams are good, and I think when they're at full strength with their receivers back, they're probably going to be two of the best teams in the conference. But right now, I just don't see the fireworks in this game that everybody else sees. I think it's a good, competitive, low to mid 20s game. Give me the under in this one, and it's at 52.5 right now. And it probably, like you said, everybody's loving to play the overs. This thing is probably going to go up another half or a point.
It's no way it's going up. And I'll tell you what. Look, I consider myself fairly sharp in these totals. I played it. When I played it, the number went down slightly, and normally the market will follow me, and it didn't follow me. But I don't think sharps would let this go up.
It's too high. That's what I mean. Yeah, it's
too high.
It is. It really is. For some reason, if it does, jump all over it. But jump on it now in case it goes back the other way, as Paul just mentioned. So yeah, see what I like about this week is we have and then a great game to close things out on Monday night. We actually have some good, interesting games. I think that the Vegas Patriots game is interesting. Both of those teams have looked pretty good. We're going to learn something about them. I'm very interested in the Pittsburgh-Houston game. That, two teams that I think are solid. The Rams versus the Bills looks like a very fun game on paper. And then these, Seattle-Dallas is another really good one. Saints-Packers, another good game. How about Baltimore versus the Chiefs? And you got your Super Bowl Chiefs as a plus 3.5-point underdog right now. The total in this game is up to 54.5. So we're going to get Mahomes. We're going to get Lamar Jackson. We're going to get the two teams that people think are the two best teams in football. It's hard to really disagree with that. But, we talked a lot about the Chiefs last week and that they could have very easily lost that game. And they even needed so much as what happened with the field goals late where Butker had to hit a 53-yard field goal. Then there was a penalty. They called a timeout. He had to hit a 58-yard field goal twice in order for them to win. So a lot of things had to go right for the Chiefs to win that game and felt like the Chargers lost that game. So where are you in this one, the big game of the week, Paul?
Gino, the number opened 2.5. It's at 3.5. Would I be enthralled about giving 3.5 points to the world champions, knowing that you could get beat by a garbage touchdown at the end by Patrick Mahomes? No, I would not. But looking at that Chiefs team, and I mentioned this before, 4.4 yards a rush to the Chargers, and Justin Herbert, 22 of 33. You got a rookie cornerback in there, basically, at L'Jarius Sneed. Now you got Ward, who's the right cornerback. He's questionable. He will probably play, but I'm not impressed with their defense. I have to give the edge to Baltimore on offense here, considering that Sammy Watkins is now in concussion protocol. I like Baltimore here. Would I give 3.5 points? No, but I think the best play here, and I've already played it for a little bit, is to take the Baltimore team total over, because I do think they get into the 30s. They're not going to be able to take their foot off the gas as they kind of did last week against the Texans. They're going to have to keep scoring. They have the weapons. They have the tight ends. They have a running back, and they have the quarterback, and they will score points.
That is the best way to play this game, in my opinion, just like you said, the Baltimore team total, because I feel in agreement with you. I don't want to play against Mahomes and this Chiefs team getting 3.5 to 4 points. I don't, but I've heard and read some things in the last few weeks, and you can tell that this Baltimore team, because of the way that things ended for them last year, they've sort of circled this game early in the season as like their early Super Bowl, because they want to prove. I think Lamar Jackson feels like he has a point to prove that, hey, I had this great year, but in the big games, I still haven't been able to prove it in the playoffs. I think Baltimore wins this game too. I agree. I feel like they're going to take this game a little more seriously than the Chiefs, who are a Super Bowl winner, and they don't have to. Honestly, they don't. I mean, I don't think they're going to say, oh, we need to go out and prove a point here, as much as it feels like some of the quotes I've heard and some of the things over the last few weeks. I'm with you. I can't play it at 3.5. If you found a 2.5 out there, I'd be okay with that, or even a 3. I wouldn't want to give more than the field goal. If you're on the Baltimore side, I think the best thing that you said is Baltimore team total. I could see this team. This could be the game that I could see these teams going back and forth. It could be really fun where it's like Lamar, Mahomes. I just don't think either team is going to stop. I don't think either coach is going to stop. They're going to say, we got to get to 40-45 if we want to beat the other team. So I'm with you. Team total over on Baltimore is probably the play in here, and a really fun. I mean, we're going to have really nice Sunday afternoon, Sunday night, and Monday night games this week on a great NFL Week 3 slate. Paul, give us kind of a overview of Week 3, some of the games that you've either played or that you're looking to play, or maybe numbers that you're waiting for. Any kind of few thoughts on a few of these games?
Well, I'm going to sit on these injuries, and I make a lot of decisions.
Yep.
My decisions, are made from a betting perspective normally at the beginning of the week on Sunday night, and then after Friday when the injury reports come out, and then 11:30 Eastern Time, 11:40 Eastern Time on Sunday morning when the final injuries and the scratches come out. So as of right now, I did play the Rams and Bills over. As I mentioned, I probably will end up going to the Texans. I played the Giants at this point. I'd rather see Kittle sit out I'm not happy about seeing that he's on track to play, but I still think the Giants will score some points, and I think they'll hold San Francisco to 17-20, which will be good enough to get a cover. And then I play a lot of props. I like, what did I play Sunday? There was, I'll give out one prop. I played Tyler Higbee over 4.5 catches, over 51.5 yards. I thought that was a bargain number because, as I mentioned before, since he took over from Everett, he's averaged 7 catches a game, actually a shade over 7, and about 90 yards a game. So those two numbers came out. They look great. I think this could be a situation where it's kind of like Darren Waller. You know, they set him at 4.5, 5, and he ends up having 7 or 8 or 9. It just depends on whether the corners can shut those guys down a little bit, and then Goff ends up dumping it off to Higbee. And Higbee is more than a dump-off guy anyway.
He is. Oh, yeah, and they look to him in the red zone. Just like you said, it's a good play because I could see Woods and maybe Kupp having a little bit of a harder time getting open against – Buffalo does – their defense – can make big plays. I feel like their defense is going to play better this week than what we've seen in the last few, and that's when Higbee is the guy that Goff has to look to, and he has been an absolute monster from the second half of last season. The Rams, and you know what, I think that has something to do with some of the Rams' early success this year too, is they're a little more simple and a little more basic in how they are approaching it, and so middle of the year, end of the year, you might be able to figure this team out a little bit, but the addition of using the tight end a little bit more, they've got a couple options in the backfield. They don't feel as predictable, even though they're basic. It used to be, Gurley's back there. We got to kind of give Gurley some touches. We've got these weapons here. We're going to throw the ball. I like what they're doing. They kind of feel New England-y in how it's very simple. It's there's just a lot of variations on things that they're running. So this could be a good week for Higbee. And especially if the Rams wide receivers aren't able to get open there.
And those Bills linebackers are out. If those Bills linebackers are out,
with the tight end, that matchup is awesome.
Right. Think of what Gesicki again did last week. 8 catches, $130. Okay, that sets up very well for Higbee.
Paul, I know you were talking some sports on in ESPN affiliate the other day, Vegas Insider, all over different shows here and there. But for some of the folks that would like to maybe follow along with you on social media or catch some of your thoughts here or there, where could we do that?
You can find me on Twitter at Paul Bovi. And, of course, I'm on covers. I'm on Vegas Insider. Feel free to hit me up. Twitter, follow me. I do post some plays there. As you know, Gino, I like to dabble in the horses, and I'm frothing at chomping at the bit because I have to check the second race at Belmont. I bet the 4-horse.
Thank you. You gave me more than an hour of your time. You're one of my favorite people to talk sports with. We could sit here for hours and go through. And I'll definitely have to pull your arm maybe week 6, 7, a few weeks here from there to check back in again and do the same thing.
Sure, Gino.
Thank you so much, Paul. Really appreciate it. Folks, don't go anywhere. We're going to take a quick break on That's What G Said, but plenty more on the menu.
Hey, big thank you to Paul Bovi for helping us out with NFL Week 3. Let's talk, before we recap my picks, let's talk a little bit about Thrive Fantasy. So, Paul is a big prop fan. He likes to bet props. Are you someone who likes to play a lot of props? If that's the case, you really need to check out this new app. It's called Thrive Fantasy. Download it on your phone, on your iPad. They have weekly contests for football. They have daily contests for all sports, and they actually have Thursday contests for football, specific Sunday contests, Monday night contest. Their major contests are usually around $20 to $25, and they will have anywhere from $2,000, $5,000, $10,000. This weekend, $7,500 for the Thursday night football. You can get involved already in NFL Week 3, $15,000 in guaranteed prizes for your Sunday. They have touchdown-only contests. So if you like daily fantasy, this is a new app that is based around prop betting. And if you use the promo code GINO when you make your deposit, promo code GINO when you make your deposit, you will get an instant bonus all the way up to $50. You got to deposit at least 20. If you deposit 20, you'll get an instant 20 right back in. Promo code Gino. Deposit 50, you'll get a 50 right back in there. All the way up to 50 instantly, right back in your account. You'll have, tons of opportunities to look around and play in different contests. If maybe football isn't necessarily what you like to play, don't worry. They've got basketball, baseball, golf, League of Legends, you name it. They've got it there. Thrive Fantasy. Check that out. Promo code GINO. $30,000 guaranteed prizes just on Thursday. Over the weekend, even more. Thrive Fantasy. Promo code GINO. So for me this weekend, some of my plays. Week 1, I was 2-5. Crappy week. Week 2, bounced back nicely, 2-1. So we're up to 4-6. Here are the games this week. First game, Raiders, Patriots, under 48. Giants plus the 4, Houston plus the 4, Bills minus the 2.5, Detroit plus the 5.5, and the Saints Packers under 52.5. Those are my plays for NFL Week 3. Let's get into horse racing, and let's go to Churchill Downs for Friday. So a couple plays for you at Churchill, Belmont, and at Santa Anita on Friday, and then we'll go, same thing, we'll go through our plays at Churchill, Belmont, and Santa Anita for Saturday. So at Churchill on Friday, we begin in race number 4. That's the first play of the day. These are maiden 40,000. They're going to go a mile and a 16th on the turf course here. I'm going to go to the number 5, Alexander Hamilton. He was tracking on the inside. He was 4th, just a couple lengths out. He was traveling really well, but he had nowhere to go. He got shuffled back a couple lengths. He got an opening, but it was just too late. He ended up finishing a very good second that day. That was his first start since January. That was his first start against maiden claimers. He was also going a mile and an 1/8 that day. Now you get a slight turn back. I think this is going to be a great, great spot for him to just run the same type of race, and he's right in the mix. If he takes a little step forward, he's going to win this. The number 5, Alexander Hamilton. Anything around 3-1 will be worthy of a win wager there at Churchill on Friday in race number 4. Let's get you to race number 6. Throw the one extra effort into your exotics. There's just not much other speed in here. This gal has legit sprint speed. I think they're going to send hard from the inside, stepping on the grass for the first time, stretching back out to a mile. Give me extra effort in here. The number 1 from the inside. Make sure to use in all of your exotics. Make a win wager if you get around 4-1 or so. Let's jump to race number 8. Let's go to the 7 here. This is breaking news. The 8th race is a first level allowance. There's a pretty good amount of speed. You'd imagine with Spycraft, Energizer is pretty quick. Julius is very, very quick. And Kadri is going to be close up. Breaking news has been more of a stone cold closer in his career. But with the blinkers coming on, I'm hoping he can just sit a little bit closer. Just a little bit more mid-pack than dead last. So the number 7, breaking news. We'll make a win wager if we get anything around 7-2. Make sure to throw breaking news into all of your exotics. And we get to race number 10 here. I'm going to go to the 4, Spidey Sherrill. I love this cutback from a mile to 6 furlongs. Spidey Sherrill has shown she can sit. She can pass horses. She was your beaten favorite going longer at Ellis last time out, but she ran really well going 6 furlongs, 2 starts back, and she's run well previously at Churchill. She feels like she has speed to put herself in position, and now because she's cutting back, I think she will have the opportunity to sit off a little bit more and maybe not get so caught up in what's going on early. So the number 4, Spidey Sherrill. 4 plays over at Churchill on Friday. 4th race, the number 5, Alexander Hamilton. Don't worry about Aaron Burr. In the 6th race, the number 1, Extra Effort. Anything around 4-1 makes sense. In the 8th race, the number 7, Breaking News. Anything around 7-2. And in the 10th race, the number 4, Spidey Sherrill. Anything around 7-2 makes sense on that one. Get those past performances out for Belmont for Friday. We got 3 plays for you for Friday, September the 25th. And the first one is going to come in race number 2 with the number 6, Bella Rose. That is a horse who I think is going to get bet a little bit off of the morning line. Now, she's a little light on numbers and figures. She was sitting 6th in their last race. She was mid-pack. She was too deep. And she just didn't have a whole lot late. That was against Better. That was her first start in a few months. And what I like is you'll notice she is going to put a couple starts together. And the last time she put 2 starts together, she ran really well. And that was when she won back in November of 2019. She's back in for 40. She's back with 3-year-olds. She's going to go second off. I think there's plenty to like about Bella Rose. Expect to see her closer today than she was in that last start, too. The number 6, Bella Rose. Throw her in your early pick 5s. Throw her in your exotics. Around 10-1 will make a win wager on the number 6, Bella Rose. Move to race number 7, and let's talk about the number 5 in here, and that is Sky Snow. She was wide all the way around in her last start. She was up to briefly take the lead, but she just lost a ton of ground. That is not the type of trip that wins on the grass. That was the first start since April. If she just runs a similar race, she's going to be a little fitter. I don't think she'll be sitting as wide. Sky Snow, the play for me, around 7-2. We'll make a win wager, and maybe even a horse to build some late exotics around. We go to race number 9. And a horse who I want to make sure that you throw into your exotics is the number 12 in here, Honey Won't. I don't think he wants to be as far back as he was in his last start. You'll notice he can come from way out of it. He has a few times. But some of his better races are where he's just sitting more mid-pack or maybe a few lengths out of it. I think that's going to be the case today. I don't expect them to be going as quick early. And with the outside draw, that'll sort of force him to get more into it early, so that way he doesn't get hooked wide. Let's hope to see him sitting a little closer today. Honey Won't, the number 12 in race number 9. We're going to use him in all of our exotics. We're going to make a win wager at anything around 7-2. We go from Belmont Park on Friday to Santa Anita on Friday. Get those past performances out, and let's look at race number 1. Now, because the Santa Anita meet has been delayed, there were fires in Southern California, very bad. The air quality was awful. Lots of people were being evacuated, losing their homes, and this was happening literally a mile or two away from Santa Anita, not far at all. They postponed the meet for a week. We're going to get Santa Anita opening up on Friday, September the 25th. And how about this? The first horse in the first race on Friday at Santa Anita, after postponing the meet for a week because of fires, Watch Me Burn. That is eerie. That is eerie for the first horse back to be called Watch Me Burn. Number 2, Fantasy Heat. But Watch Me Burn was the one that was just one of those, wow, we see weird, things like that happen in horse racing all the time. And it happens to me a lot when I'm watching a TV show and there's a phrase that's said of a horse that I'm looking at, and it's so bizarre because it's not like something that is just a normal word, and you look down and you go, do I have to bet this horse now? But that's just something that was at least worth mentioning. Watch Me Burn. Talk about the hunch play in race number 1 to kick things off. Let's move to race number 3 for my first play. It's going to be the number 8, About Our Time. He's coming in from Remington Park, Lone Star prior to that. He's going to go for his third start of the current form cycle. And he gets away from a horse named Share the Upside, who defeated him in his last 2 starts. That is a stakes winner who's won 3 in a row. He's also coming out of a race where the horse right behind him, Empire of Gold, came back to win next out. This is just a really consistent turf sprinter. He likes to win races. He was really good on the dirt, and recently he's transferred that form over very nicely. I think About Our Time, the 2-back race on August the 10th, there were 3 next out winners that day. There's plenty of things to like about Our Time. 3-1, we'll make a win wager on the number 8. Make sure he's in all of your plays in race number 3. We move to race number 4, and I'm looking at the number 6 here, Big Hoof Dynamite. He's just really consistent, and it feels like he's going to get a great trip in here. Right next door, you got Promise Nothing, who's pretty quick. You'd imagine you're going to get some speed from Braun. You'd imagine you're going to get, Sign of the Cross sitting pretty close in here. Polar Wind is going to be close. I think Big Hoof Dynamite, Pratt keeps the faith, and this is not the strongest race in the world. He's very consistent. Just put a line through the grass race a couple starts back, and you're left with over and over a horse who just shows up and gives you his all. That's Big Hoof Dynamite. Anything around 5-2 will make a win wager, and he's a horse to beat for me in race number 4. Race number 6 is a stakes race. It is the grade through Chillingworth. Kahira's going to be really tough in here. She's won 3 in a row. I just don't know who goes with her early on. If you're playing against Kahira, maybe it's the one Message. The rail draw concerns me a little bit. I expect more from Mucho Amor in here, who had some trouble last time out. And then the 7, Amuse, to the outside. It would be 2 over 147 for me, but I'm not really going to make any plays in the 6th race there. It just looks like Kahira would be tough unless they're going to just shotgun Message from the inside. And then if those two end up battling, maybe it is Mucho Amor or Muse who sits the trip. So 2 over 147. In the 7th race, the Eddie D, the grade 2, I'm going to El Tigre Terrible. He's a little low on the numbers and figures, but when he wins, he's so impressive, and he has legitimate excuses for the races where he didn't run well, and he's gotten in trouble. He's very honest. This might be a little tough for him, so I don't want anything less than 4-1. I would like even a little. Probably 5-1 would be great, but if he's at 4-1, that's fair. I think he's better than what some of his numbers and figures would suggest. So El Tigre Terrible, the number 6 in race number 7, but we don't really want to get shorter than that 4-1. And then we move to race number 9. The optional 40, first level allowance, going a mile on the turf course here. Let's go to the 7, Aunt Luby, who tracked on the inside in her last start. She was 3rd. She was within 2 lengths. She was saving ground. She angled out nicely. She tried really hard. She just got nailed late for 2nd. Now she's going to go 3rd off the long layoff. Who scares you in here? There are no monsters. Nobody terrifies me. If Aunt Luby is anything over 7-2, I'll make a win wager. She hasn't won on the grass, but her form is fine. Her last effort is better than what most have on the grass in defeat when finishing 3rd. Give me Aunt Luby at anything around 7-2. So it's Santa Anita on Friday, 3rd race, the number 8, about our time, around 3-1 is what we'd like there. In the 4th race, the number 6, Big Hoof Dynamite, at around 5-2. In the 7th, El Tigre Terrible at around 4-1. And in the 9th, Aunt Luby, the number 7, at anything around 7-2. Horse racing fans, a website you have to check out, oldsmokeclothing.com. This is horse racing t-shirts, hats, with horse names. We got polo shirts, hoodies, long sleeves, zip-ups, with the names of big races, slogans. You can get custom designs on there. And right now, for the Preakness, which is coming up, they have some limited edition tees up right now. They've got the Preakness Weather Vane that you could check out. And there's also the Black-Eyed Susan t-shirt, oldsmokeclothing.com. When you use the promo code GINO, free shipping on your order. Free shipping when you use that promo code GINO. Go to oldsmokeclothing.com if you are a fan of horse racing. You're listening to this horse racing section of the show, so I'd imagine that you are. Maybe it's your mom or your dad, your brother, your sister, your friend, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, husband, wife, one of your kids that loves racing. This is a great opportunity for you to check out a website where you can get them some birthday gifts, some Christmas gifts in advance, and if you use that promo code GINO, helps me look good with my sponsors, and it saves you a few bucks with the free shipping. oldsmokeclothing.com, a couple new t-shirts to check out up on the site this week. They've got the limited edition Weather Vane Pimlico, and they've got the Black-Eyed Susan t-shirt. Don't forget, promo code GINO, free shipping on your order. Let's move to Saturday. For Saturday racing, let's start with Churchill Downs. We have 4 plays for you over at Churchill on Saturday. They begin in race number 3. Yeah, it's just a small field, but the money will likely be spread out a bit in here, and I'm going to go to the outside with the 6 Bye Bye Birdstone. There's not a ton of speed in here. 6.5 furlongs is a little too far for him. He went 6.5 last time out. You can see in his running lines that just feels like a little farther than where he's best. He's going to cut back from 6.5 to 6. He gets the outside draw. There's not a lot of other speed in here. He hooked a couple tough groups. He faced better last time against 25. And then look who he faced in May and in June. He hooked CZ Rocket, who has won 4 in a row and then won the Grade 2 Pat O'Brien. He, on June the 14th, was one of 5 next out winners that day behind Chaos Theory and Battle Station. He comes out of some tougher races. He's drawn well in a race where there's not a lot of other speed in here. Bye Birdstone. Top selection in race number 3. We'll make a win wager if we can get anything around 5-2. And he might be a horse to single in and key in on some of your early exotics. Let's move to race number 6 at Churchill. and it's going to be the number 5 in here that I'm going to be taking a look at. Pledge of Allegiance, second-time starter for Paul McGee and for JMS. He broke slow towards the rear in his debut. He was outside. The top 2 choices were battling, and they were close. They ended up, battling for the win, and they were sitting close. He was coming from way out of it that day. The race shape was just against Pledge of Allegiance. He ends up just missing third. You get more distance. You get, that second out improvement, that second out fitness level, and there's more pace to chase in here. With Moiler from the inside, full authority, you'd imagine those two are both going to be flashing a little bit of speed in here. Lake Nimrod from the outside is going to be sitting close. For me, it is Pledge of Allegiance, the number 5 in race number 6. Anything around 4-1 will make a win wager on that one. We move to race number 8, and it's going to be the 2, Sanus, who was making his her U.S. debut on August the 16th. She was a solid third behind Kahira, who we just talked about a little bit earlier, who's running on Friday at Santa Anita. And Kahira has won 3 in a row. In that same race, Proud Emma, who was second, came back to win next out and won a stakes race. So it was a good effort for her first start in the year. It was her first start for McCarthy, the first start in the U.S., it was her first start since February. It wasn't the first start of the year, but the first start for McCarthy, first start in the U.S., first start in quite a while since February. Same, point with the layoff. And you look at the way this race is going to shape up. With Gold Standard, with Take Charge Angel, with Talk Vuv to Me, with Harmless. There's going to be pace to chase in here. I think Sanus saves ground from the inside. Anything around 5-1 or so will make a win wager on the 2 in race number 8 at Churchill on Saturday. We get to the stakes race for Churchill Saturday. It is the Grade 3 ACAC Warriors Charge from the inside. It's going to be really tough, but I'm going to make a win wager on Everfast, the number 13, if we can get anything around 5-1 or so. He's been a really good horse for this barn. His start at Oaklawn in April was excellent. He showed a lot more tactical speed. He comes back in May and is a really good second behind Owendale. They try the turf. Okay, just put a line right through it. No reason to hold it against him. Just didn't like the grass. Comes back, wins the first level allowance race, and then on August the 29th is in the Forego, and it's a sloppy racetrack. And he's been awful on the slop. Everfast has some legitimate excuses for a couple of the races where he threw in clunkers. He's been good. He's been improved for this barn. He's shown more speed from the outside. He's going to have to use some of that versatility. Maybe he sits close. Maybe they take him back. Give me Everfast at anything around 5-1. That is the number 13 in race number 9 at Churchill on Saturday. So Churchill Saturday, race number 3, the number 6 by Birdstone, anything around 5-2. In the 6th race, the number 5, Pledge of Allegiance, anything around 4-1. In the 8th race, the number 2, Chanus, anything around 5-1. And in race number 9, the 13, Everfast, anything around 5-1. We'll make a win wager on that one. We go from Churchill on Saturday over to Belmont on Saturday. 4 plays for you over at Belmont Park, and they will begin in race number 2. Now, this one is just a pure pedigree play because we didn't see a whole lot from the 10 in the career debut, but now it's going to be Ekoshi Kwa who's stepping on the grass for the first time, and the Dam was a Grade 3 winner on the turf. There were 2 multiple winning turf sibs. I like the fact that Irad jumped aboard in the debut, and he comes out of a productive race. Plenty of reasons to think that you will get second out improvement here going along on the grass with the number 10 in race number 2. So anything around 4-1, that'll be the play in race number 2. We move to race number 3, and it is Jam Star for me, the number 7. She had a solid debut. She'd had some traffic trouble in a small field. She was kind of in between horses, and she was not having the best trip. Others got much better journeys. Now she's drawn to the outside. She's fit. She's got that 7 furlong race under her belt. Now she stretches out to the mile. 7 furlongs is not an easy distance in which to debut. Give me Jam Star, the number 7. Anything around 4-1 will make a win wager in race number 3. We turn now to race number 8, which is the Grade 3 Noble Damsel. To me, the most consistent horse in this field and the one to beat is Feel Glorious. And if she is anything over 5-2, we'll be playing her. She's just so consistent. She is, you look at her last few races, you just look at her overall form. She always shows up and puts a good effort in. She was behind Mean Mary a couple starts back in June. Then in July, she was one of 2 next out winners. There were 2 next out winners in the June 27th race. Last time out, she was a winner at Saratoga. With Blowout, with Chaleur, with Sweet By and By, there should be enough speed for Feel Glorious to get that mid-pack to the back of the mid-pack type trip and then come closing late. You know, my sister Nat's a next out grade 3 winner who she was right behind. Like the races she's coming out of. Love her consistency. Like the way this race shapes up for Feel Glorious at anything around 5-2. And the same price as we move into race number 9 for the Vosburg that lost Volatile and is now a much softer spot. But you look at this race, to me, it's Engage and Frenzy Fire. We haven't seen Engage since the Breeders' Cup, where he was a good 4th that day. And he is a graded stakes winner, but he has not raced since November. And people will see Frenzy Fire, and they'll look, his recent form hasn't been as good. Well, I would disagree. Last time out, he was in the slop, put a line right through it. This horse does not like the slop. Look at how all of his races in the slop have been. Look at how his numbers and figures stack up in those races. He's just not the same horse on and off track. 2 starts back, he was 4th in the Vanderbilt. He was behind Volatile, Whitmore, and Mind Control. Any one of them would be favored in here. Those are 3 nice horses. There's no shame in being 4th behind those 3. Prior to that, he won the True North. Prior to that, he was in the slop in the Carter. Easy race to put a line right through, and he was behind Vacoma, who was awesome that day. I think Frenzy Fire is the horse to beat. I think he's the class. He, to me, makes so much sense at anything around 5-2 in here. Because I have questions about Engage. And those would be the only 2 I would use in some late exotics. It would just be Frenzy Fire and Engage. Now, going 6 furlongs, there's like no speed in this race. For a 6 furlong race. Stan the Man isn't really a sprint speed type. He's got more route speed. Funny Guy isn't really a sprint speed type. Neither is True Timber. So Frenzy Fire could be really, really close in here. The 5, Frenzy Fire, anything around 5-2. So at Belmont on Saturday, in race number 2, it is the 10 at around 4-1. Race number 3, the number 7, Jam Star at around 4-1. Race number 8, the number 9, Feel Glorious at around 5-2. And in race number 9, the number 5, Frenzy Fire at around 5-2. One of the longtime sponsors of That's What She Said podcast, Sarah Candle Company. Their website, seracandles.com, C-E-R-A candles.com, and when you use the promo code GINO, it'll get you 10% off of your entire purchase. This is a different type of candle, and it's a different candle company, because their goal was to create a candle 100% natural, clean burning, high quality that everyone can enjoy. You got the all-natural soy wax, free from the toxins found in paraffin wax, which is used by all the other leading brands. The all-natural soy wax will hold your scent longer and will burn better than the traditional paraffin wax. Lead-free, cotton wicks, completely natural scents, 25 different scents available, 3 different sizes. Heck, they even give you instructions on how to clean your candle, how to trim the wick to make sure it's safe and the best burn that you will get. That promo code GINO gets you 10% off your purchase. This is a great gift for someone. SarahCandles.com, promo code GINO. Over to Santa Anita for Saturday. And we'll go through the stakes races here at Santa Anita. In race number 1, it's Aqua Foam Seaform Shame for me, the number 3, who's cutting back from the grade 1 Del Mar Oaks, going 1 1/8 to 5.5 furlongs. This is the trip that she wants. She's a good turf sprinter. She just tried against a tougher group going too far last time out. She'll cut back. She'll be sitting probably just off the pace in here behind a speedy horse like Bulletproof One. I like Aqua Seaform Shame, the number 3 in race number 1 at Santa Anita on Saturday. The third race is going to be the grade 2 Chandelier, the 2-year-old race, and Princess Noor is going to be really, really tough in here. She's chalky. The only horse I might try to use or maybe would try to beat her with would be Miss Costa Rica, but Princess Noor going to be very tough in there. In race number 7, I would go to the number 2, the very consistent Maxim Rate, who is another one who I like to play horses sometimes when I watch their races and the figures come up a little bit low, because I know I trust my eyes sometimes. And Maximum Rate is one of them where she is just in great form right now. She has seemingly taken a nice step forward at the age of 4. She was good at 3, but she was just a cut below some of these. And I think she's improved enough to where she can beat some of the fillies that were beating her and some of these older mares that might have been beating her last year. So Maxim Rate is going to be the top selection, the number 2, anything around 3-1. We'll make a win wager on in race number 7. In the 8th race, it is going to be the number 8, Wasperant. His debut sprinting didn't show a whole lot. Comes back, stretches out. He's kind of in between horses early. He moves wide. He's 3 wide and still in between. And then towards the top of the lane, he's 3 deep, and he looks all in. But he's a real grindy type. He kept going. He ends up going by the favorite late. They add the blinkers to get him a little more focused. He's the only horse in this race that has a win going long. This is not a strong renewal of the Grade 1 American Pharoah. The horse who would have been the favorite in here, Dr. Chevelle, they've said is going to be put up till next year at 3, so he's not in this spot. And Wasperant feels like he can jump up and win this race. I think the outside draw, he shouldn't be too far out of it. He's sort of grindy. He feels like he can run all day. I like the fact that he's gone long already. Wasperant, the number 8, anything around 4-1. We'll make a win wager there at Santa Anita on Saturday. In race number 9, it's going to be the one, Proud Pedro. He had legitimate trouble. Doesn't really talk about it in the running lines, but he was steadied. He was kind of stopped. He had to wait, and then he ends up moving, and he just, with a different trip, a better time. I don't want to say better time to ride because there was nothing really wrong with the ride. He was just doing everything he could to get out of the trouble, and I think he got a little bit late making his middle move. Proud Pedro, if he's around 6-1 or so, I'm making a win wager on him. Throw him into all of your late exotics. And then we get to the Awesome Again, the Grade 1 Awesome Again. Maximum Security is going to be the heavy favorite in here. But Take the 101 is really quick. And Sleepy Eyes Todd is really quick. And Midcourt has shown that he has the speed when he wants to push Maximum Security. This race on paper really feels like it sets up great for Improbable. You're not going to get rich because he's probably going to be 6-5 in a race where you'll have 2 horses taking a ton of money. But I prefer Improbable over Maximum Security. He has just been an awesome horse this year. He really has. He's improved. He's shown that he can sit and relax. He can go longer than we thought. I like Improbable there to beat Maximum Security at Santa Anita on Saturday. So in race number 1, it's the 3, Aqua Seaform Shame. In the 7th race, it's the 2, Maxim Rate. In the 8th race, it's the 8, Wasperant. In the 9th race, it's the 1, Proud Pedro. And in the 10th, it is Improbable for me at Santa Anita on Saturday. A massive stable duel week coming up, and they're going to have a free roll on Saturday at Santa Anita. So you just heard me give out some plays at Santa Anita. You can build your Santa Anita Saturday lineup at Stable Duel and have a chance to win cash money for free. So you probably heard me talking about Stable Duel for a while now, but you've never played. Maybe you said, I don't know. Why not now? All you have to do is go download the app. It is free to get involved. If you have any questions, you can let me know. I will help you build your lineups, and there will be even more help because I'm going to be on a live stream Saturday morning with some of the folks from Stable Duel, with Bree Mott, also with Sean Alvarez, who we've had on this show before, and we're going to go through building a lineup, some overall thoughts on what some of the things I do when I'm building my lineup, and then some specific horses to use in our lineups on Saturday. So Saturday in that free roll contest. But that's not it for Stable Duel. There's a lot going on. Friday contest, $10 entry at Santa Anita, and then a $25 top 10 contest at Santa Anita for your 25 entry. There's also a $5 contest at Pimlico. On Saturday at Woodbine, there's a $5 contest, $5 entry. Then they have that free roll contest, $0 to enter. Just download your app, create your stable, and if you have any questions, let me know. There's also a $50 contest that's for the top 5 on Saturday at Santa Anita. And then on Sunday, there's a Woodbine contest. That's a $10 entry. Santa Anita contest. There's a $25 entry. And then they have the $5 entry that is for the aftercare charity. the proceeds of that game are given to aftercare. And Stable Duel has had an amazing month where they have been giving back to the OTTBs and to aftercare with the Play Race Adopt Photo Contest. They've given away 2 different packages each week of Stable Duel prize packages to folks who have shared and played along in the contest. So Stable Duel giving back. It's the final aftercare charity game on Sunday with the $5 entry at Santa Anita, where all the proceeds are given to aftercare charity. And if you haven't been listening, there is about a week and a half left to get to silver status. When you are playing Stable Duel and when you see your stable, it'll tell you your status. If you get to silver status, you will get a $25 game credit that can be used in next Saturday's Preakness game. So make sure to play at as many contests as you can and keep building your status. Get up to silver status so you can play in that Preakness game and you can get that $25 credit next week. Saturday morning around 12:30 Eastern Time, we're going to have a live stream. It'll be Bree Mott, Sean Alvarez, maybe 1 or 2 others, and we'll be talking Stable Duel, everything going on those Stable Duel Saturday games. Next up, we have a special treat for you on this week's Old Wrestling Rewatch. It is Ralph Strangis who joins us to talk a little bit about the AWA and about his really crazy career and some of the awesome things he's done throughout. So we talk AWA Team Challenge Series. We talk about some of his life calling hockey and all the different jobs and some of the stuff that he's come across. This is a fun conversation. And then after we go through, so we talk with him for about 40 minutes. Following that, we have our normal discussion where we go match by match and we break things down with Andrew and with Darin. So enjoy the conversation with Ralph, and then after the match by match, play by play with Andrew and with Darin. Okay, we've got a treat for you this week on the Old Wrestling Rewatch. I got to give Andrew some credit, or I guess the credit or the blame. We'll see how it goes afterwards when we bring our guest in. Andrew, I have a feeling this is going to be a fun conversation because we have a crazy, unique show to discuss. This was your pick. We're going to be talking about the AWA. So set it up a little bit for us, Andrew, and bring in our guest today. We've got Andrew and Darin here like always, but this is, I think, the first time we're going to have someone in sort of an interview format. We're going to talk with him about his background and how he got into wrestling this show, and then afterwards we'll do the match by match kind of breakdowns that we normally do. Andrew, go for it.
Much like the rock supergroup Crosby, Stills, and Nash, we all have our little roles and the different things that we bring to the table. Darin loves watching the technical stuff. He's a huge Bret Hart fan. Gino likes the technical stuff, but he's certainly into the more showman aspects of professional wrestling, stuff like The Rock and Steve Austin. And I'm the David Crosby of the group because I handle the weird stuff. And a couple of years ago, the WWE Network uploaded a pilot that the AWA shot for something called the Team Challenge Series. On a whim, I went online and I searched for one of the voices of the AWA Team Challenge Series. One thing led to another, and we are so happy to have this guy with us, Ralph Strangis, the play-by-play man from this pilot. You may know him better from his years with the Dallas Stars. Ralph, welcome to the show. We are delighted to have you with us.
So that's how it happened. So
yeah.
So you're just off into one of your weird little Crosby sort of wormholes, and up comes this odd 80s wrestling thing. I might have been wearing a tracksuit or zebra pants with a tuxedo jacket. Those were my go-tos back in the day. But honestly, Andrew, and hey, guys, Gino, Darin, thanks for having me. This was a long time ago. We're talking about, I think it has to be, I was just trying to remember this, like 87 or 88 sound right to anybody?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
88 or 89, yeah.
Yeah, I think they were getting ready to go play it like 89, 90. They were trying to push it towards the end, like the last little dying bit of the AWA. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's hence that who's the cheapest, youngest kid in town, that'll work for nothing, and we can just sort of lock him in this studio and make him do whatever we want. And yeah, that's how I got the gig. Actually, the audition was funny. Okay, so as I remember this, because I'm going to have a better recall. I'm going to have no recall on the matches. Let's just say that in advance. Well, I shouldn't say no, but you're going to have to kind of help me with it. So I'm sitting at home as I do sometimes, as we all do, and I'm a young broadcaster, but excuse me, I'm also freelancing as a videographer. I'm shooting video yearbooks for high schools, and I'm doing high school hockey games on cable TV for no money. And I'm running around trying to and football games, all the stuff you do. You know, you guys know, like the stuff you do. And so I had done some voiceovers. I got a weird deal where I got a Ford car commercial in British Columbia, and it paid like $100. And I went in and did it. And the woman who booked me said, "Hey, you like sports, don't you?" And I went, "Yeah." She said, "Well, I've heard that they're auditioning for this AWA. Do you know what it is?" Now, full disclosure, I knew what it was, but I wouldn't say even a kid in Minneapolis. I mean, you know the big names, and you know about it because the history there. I mean, that's all these guys. You know, my cousin went to school with Flair. You know, and you know Hogan's around and Ventura and all those. You know, like I mean, it was a big and the Gagnes. I mean, they treated me great. But anyway, so I said, okay. She goes, "Well, call this number," and I called this number. And they said, "What do you know about wrestling?" And actually, I didn't. I was like, and I didn't know anything really. Right? I said, "Oh, I've been a fan my whole life." They said, "Oh, well, great. We got the audition going on. You know, what have you done?" And I kind of told, "Okay, come on into." They gave me an address, and they said, "Tell the guy at the door, you know, whatever." So it turns out to be a strip joint in Minneapolis, and the producer's name was Nick, and I won't remember. So Vern's at the end, right? Everybody's gone. Okerlund's gone. I mean, everybody's gone. The only people who are left are the Gagne loyalists. You know, like Zabisco was there, and Slaughter was still there. Enos and Bloom were still there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they had the Trooper was still. I mean, Zabisco. They had people, you know, there, and I think they probably had some young talent that they could get cheap that, you know, McMahon was going to say, all right, we'll let Vern train them, and I'll do the same thing with these guys, right? So that was kind of what we were left with. And then I came in, and they just wanted the show to look different and be different and all of that stuff. So we shot the pilot. They had a ring. They had a ring in the strip joint, but it was the ring they used. They would auction the women off to be wrestled in baby oil. This is a true story. So this is true. This is true. So they had a ring for that. And that's kind of some of the stuff we shot in the strip joint. And then like all the segment heads would be there, and I'd be standing, you know, with two girls beside me and, you know, like that, two young women, and we'd go to the next thing. Okay. So that was kind of it. So afterwards, the manager comes over and he says, "Hey, I was watching you there." He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "You want a job?" And I go, "What?" He says, "Well, you want a job? Do you want to work here?" I said, "Doing what?" I understand it's the women who do the heavy lifting here. And he said, no. He said, "We need somebody to auction the women off in the ring on Monday nights." He said, "Because we got our guy, but he can't do Monday nights. He'll train you in." Okay, so I did it like twice, but it's still going back over, 40 years really of doing television and radio and all sorts of different things. It was one of the hardest jobs I ever had because they never thought you got enough money for them. Mm-hmm. The customers were not very polite. Like, this was a bad setup.
You're just
like
the fall guy.
Go wrong.
You're the fall, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm in the middle of it.
And the face
and
of it,
everybody's yelling at me, and I said, no. But so that was how, because I won the audition, and they brought me back to do it there, and I mean, they wanted something different and upbeat. And I mean, as you can tell, at almost 60 years old, I'm still not lacking for energy. And this is what they wanted. So it was me and Greg and Eric Bischoff were pretty much the air talent guys for the local show. And then we had the other stuff, the Rochester matches too. But I'll end it with this. The very first wrestling match I ever went to, I was the analyst on the ESPN show working with Lee Marshall, the great Lee Marshall. Yes. The very first match I ever attended. And then I also called that match later into a monitor for the local and the regional shows. So it was great. It was great fun, but boy, was I in over my head.
Well, that is just I
know.
I have so many follow-up questions,
I'm sure
and I'll
know.
try to drill it down into some of the main ones, because we've all worked in television. We've all had the assignments where you're just like, wait, what?
Yeah.
And that just seems like 5 or 6 wait, what assignments all rolled into one. So you get hired to do this. Mm-hmm. They say, okay, we've got the ESPN show, which, by the way, is how I became sort of an AWA historian, because I watched ESPN Classic an unhealthy amount of times, and they had all of the episodes running on a loop. You DVR the show whenever it popped up, and over the course of a month, you get the entire library because they just run them in order. Well, so they decide, okay, we want to try something else. We're doing the Team Challenge Series. First of all, I
can't even remember the Team Challenge series.
Yes.
When you emailed me and said, punch the button, Greg, and it was stuff that hadn't crossed my brain in decades. Like, I saw that push the button, Greg, or punch. Was it push or punch?
Punch the button.
Punch the button, Greg. And I saw it and I went, oh my gosh.
Well,
did that really happen in my life? You know,
if that brought up a Vietnam type flashback, I am so sorry. But
no question.
The question that I do have for you is, I don't know if you've seen the WWE's documentary on the AWA, but they did a segment with anyone who was anyone with the AWA at that time. Everyone claimed they had no idea who came up with the idea. I need to ask this question, not just as a wrestling fan, but as a broadcast journalist. Do you remember whose idea this was?
The Challenge Series?
Yeah.
Well, here's what I'm going to say. I'm not sure, but my recollection of those days, Vern ran it. Vern was very much still running it. Much to his detriment, I think, eventually, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But he was in control of everything. My guess is, and Vern, by the way, was really good to me. Like, when they hired me, he'd say, ringside Ralph. And the first day he comes over, it's Vern Gagne. I'm a Minnesota guy, right? Like, this guy's a legend.
He was huge.
Yeah,
big deal. He was a legend. He did national Geritol commercials. He was an Olympic wrestler. Like, this was a big star from Minneapolis. And I was there with Vern Gagne and Greg, the high flyers, right? Like, I knew enough, okay? And remind me, I'll tell you my story about having lunch with Nick Bockwinkel, which to this day is, But I would guess this. I would guess that Nick, the producer, and Greg, because Greg was very much involved in trying to, how do we make this better? How do we make this fresher? Nick and Greg and maybe Eric Bischoff, but Nick and Greg for sure, because Eric wasn't really, I think Eric was understandably upset that he didn't get the job I was hired for. I had no idea going in that that's kind of what it was, but that's exactly what it was. And if I was him, I'd have been irritated because I had no experience, right? But I would say that, and then I would say they went to Vern and said, "What do you think?" Because I have a recollection of there being a buzz about there's something we're doing here that's going to be cool. So that's what I remember.
And it's funny because when you look, when just going back and watching it in this era where there's no fans in the stands, it's eerie that we went back and watched this show right now, because it looks like if we had this pandemic at that time, this would have been something that Vince would have been trying to do right then. And so I sort of applaud Vern towards the end with just, hey, we know that we're not going to make it anymore doing what we're doing. We have to try something different. This was just right at the very beginning. And a lot of what we see, Ralph, throughout is green screen. It's just right at the very beginning of that technology with green screen. So you could tell that this was, producers or people that were dealing with TV that were just had like a new toy that they wanted to use. And it's funny when you look at the way, like right now today in WWF, when you turn it on and they don't have fans there, they have the fans from their computer. They call it the Thunderdome. It's a weird look. It's like they were trying to do something like this, obviously to save money and because they knew they couldn't really sell as many tickets and as many shows. But I don't think the idea was necessarily the worst idea in the world. It just, like anything, it's got to be execution. You need the right talent. You need the right group of guys. It's all got to work.
It's all about talent, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you have to have the talent, and you have to have a competitive tournament, and you have to have, it's got to make sense, right? So, when you don't have talent, I mean, talent is a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Talent means everything pretty much, and we sometimes forget that talent really does have all the leverage. The NFL without players and even some of the announcers and all of that stuff going around, like, it's really good because they're really good. They're really, really good at it. And so I think going back then, I also remember though, Andrew, that they traditionally shot matches in TV studios, to keep some costs down. The way we would do it was, and what I remember is, we'd go down to Rochester once a month or once every 6 weeks or something, Rochester, Minnesota. And it was the Rochester Civic Arena or whatever the heck we called it, whatever it might have been, it might have been the Tokyo Dome. I don't remember. But so, and Vern had a long association with him. So I'm sure he got a good deal in Rochester, and they could make money in Rochester, right? Those matches were always full. Okay. So we'd go in and I would be like the color man with Lee Marshall. What was I doing as the analyst? That's the first place where I walked in, and I was like, my first day there, it was a Saturday, and they shoot about, whatever it was. They shoot 5 shows or 6 shows worth of matches. They just run them for hours, and we just keep doing them. And so they said, well, I said, where's Greg? I want to talk to Greg. And they said, he's in the bathroom. He's talking to a couple of guys. And I said, oh, okay. So I walk into the bathroom, and I turn the corner, and Greg and a couple of the wrestlers kind of look like they're working something out, right? Well, this is pre Vince McMahon, and so it was, I heard the kayfabe, and I had never heard that. You guys, of course, the wrestling guys know what that is. Yes,
yep.
Right. So, but I had never heard it, and I thought, wow, what's that? So ultimately, and it wasn't until I don't think a couple of years later when I really figured out what it was. I mean, I figured they were working stuff out, but when I sat at that ring that first Saturday, ringside, watching that happen in front of me, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe how physical it was. I couldn't believe how good they had to be to do it. I couldn't believe how violent it was. Like, it's a real sport. I don't care what they worked out. I mean, you got to be able to take a pounding. You got to be able to, fling yourself in all kinds of different places, and it was really hard. So I really, I enjoyed kind of seeing that. But like I said, the very first match I called, I was the analyst with Lee Marshall for ESPN. And then we'd take the shows back. And they had to be sent out to different markets. And so we would redo the play-by-play. I would be the play-by-play guy, and Greg would be the color man. And we'd call it off a small monitor in the studio out in Golden Valley. And he had an office building with a little, like a camera, like a little studio built in a little office building. And we'd sit there in our stools. And we do the stand-ups, or we do an interview or something. And then we'd look at the monitor and we'd call these matches. But now, remember, this isn't on ESPN Championship Wrestling, and this doesn't accrue points for this or that. It's going out to the Minneapolis market or whatever, or the upper Midwest market, and they got to know this. So it was, as a young sportscaster, it was unbelievable training. I mean, I was in there, 4 or 5 days a week. Oh yeah,
like on the national and the local, you got to see like the difference in how everything works, exactly like a total crash course and everything.
Total crash course, and they paid me. And as I recall, they were, again, I didn't make any money, but they weren't totally cheap with it. So
yeah,
it was great, and I had to learn how to describe things multiple ways. From like, you do it once, then you do it again, then, that one wasn't very good, we have to go back and recut it. And so, and now this time you'd see it 2 or 3 times, so now you know what was coming, you get a little faster. And it was, like I say, it was sportscasting boot camp for me. And then having to learn a sport, because I had to kind of figure out how to research this stuff, because I didn't really know anything about it, and that was pre-internet days. So, it was an unbelievable experience, and the Gagnes were so good to me. Even gave me the sleeper hold, so it was awesome. It was awesome.
Hey, Ralph, it's Darin. It's funny what you just mentioned. I was actually just going to ask you. when you get a job like that where you really don't know a whole lot about the industry, and like you said, it's pre-internet days, what did you do to become prepared and learn about the industry so that when you walked in on day one, you had some idea about what you were talking about?
Well, when I went in and got hired, the day I got hired, Darin, Vern came in. And, like, that was pretty cool, right? And so he's like, what do you know about this? And I go, honestly, I said, I don't know as much as I should. He goes, okay. So he turns around, he comes back, and he hands me 2 books. And I don't have them anymore. But they were 2 United States wrestling books, manuals. And, you know, Vern, the reputation that Vern had all those years was his guys had to know how to wrestle. You know, they had to know the basics of Olympic wrestling. They had to be real wrestlers, you know. And again, you can argue whether or not that was a great tactic in the showbiz era. And, you know, nobody really cares if they can wrestle because, you know, what do they look like and can they jump and, you know, and what are their interviews like? But his guys had to wrestle. And so he said, I want you to learn all those holds and I want you to come with me, you know, come in and ask me questions and stuff. So that's what I did. And I did that with Vernon. I did it with Greg. You know, and then I got to know the referees, you know, who were also just, you know, guys hanging around, and they had a striped shirt and they'd put it on and they'd walk into the ring. And, you know, and then, you know, some of the office people there too. And I would, you know, you couldn't really research the athletes. So I would, you know, when they'd come in for something, I'd just take them aside and I'd ask them a few questions. Or when I'd see them at Rochester, I'd say, hey, can I just ask you, like, you know, where are you guys from? What's the deal? What's your thing? What's, you know, and so I had little notes. I didn't have a lot, but I had little notes. And I think if you see my first match, it's just a guy, 20, you know, 25-year-old guy sitting ringside for the first time in his life going, what? Wow. Oh, man. Like, and that was my expert analysis.
Oh.
Championship wrestling. But yeah, it was, I mean, because I think the whole business of sports broadcasting is preparation. I mean, look, this is pre-COVID-19. All the rules are out, and I don't know I kind of know what the future is going to look like, but we don't have to get into that today. But, like, you have to know your subject. You have to research it. You know, I mean, you can't, you know, this isn't like Kingston High School television. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Andrew?
Thanks,
you know?
Ralph.
Yeah. Like, you know, you have to
They're
really
gonna know.
You have to really know what you're doing. You have to find out who these people are and what they're doing. So, and what they're all about. That's really the business. And I learned a lot of that there, you know, and then, so that when I moved on to, you know, after I folded professional wrestling in Minnesota, how do you get the transition over into hockey? Because then you have, you know, a couple years, maybe 3-4 years later, you land the biggest gig of your life, and probably the one that everybody here would know you from. Yeah, but no, I had to ruin a women's professional volleyball league first.
Oh,
so yeah, I couldn't just shut down the AWA. You know, I wanted to take some of the women out with me too. So, you know, this really great league. It was called Major League Volleyball, MLV. They had teams in Los Angeles, Dallas, Chicago, Minnesota, New York. I think they had 6 teams. And I got to be the play-by-play guy for 2 of them. And Chicago, and they did their games at DePaul. And then Minnesota, and they did their games at a small college, Augsburg College, if I remember. And so it was really fun. But that came from basically my route was I just kept doing games, and I just kept saying yes. And when the Group W cable TV in White Bear Lake, Minnesota, go Bears, said, hey, do you do volleyball? I gave them the same answer I gave the AWA. Of course I do volleyball. What, are you kidding me? I said, why? They said, well, we're doing high school volleyball game of the week. And we just happened to be where, like, the greatest high school team ever was in the state of Minnesota. So I got really good with a really good team kind of at doing it. And then that led to, you know, well, there's this Olympic thing that's coming in, this exhibition match, and I guess we're going to do that. So do you want to do it? Yeah. And then that's where the organizers were. And they came over to me and said, we heard that you're like the only working volleyball play-by-play man in the state of Minnesota. And I said, I think that's probably true. And they said, well, do you want to work for us on the Major League Volleyball side? So I just kept showing up, you know, and I just kept trying to learn about it. And I kept talking to players and coaches and, you know, and looking up stats. And I kept doing I was probably doing 50 high school or college football and hockey games a year, and then add another, I don't know how many tennis matches, because I did the state tournament too for the Minnesota State volleyball tournament. But then when I crashed that league, then I was sort of like, I'm almost 30. The North Stars just got sold. My dad knew the guys who owned it. He was a lawyer in Minnesota and a real sports guy, and he represented the Gunn brothers. And I could never get him to get me in the door for an interview. Not once. And now the Gunn brothers left. And I'm like, well, now what? And this guy, Norm Green, buys the Minnesota North Stars. And, it's been a hell of a life, man. I'm sitting at home one day, as we do. We've talked about this. We all agree on this. I'm sitting there and the phone rings. I'm not bothering anyone. And I'm thinking to myself, because I'm still doing these games for no money, and I'm, trying to piece enough work together video-wise to just keep it going. I'm thinking, I don't know what I want to do. I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm not going to make enough money doing this. And I got a call from a friend of mine I didn't know him very well, named Dan Mandich. And Mandich used to play for the Minnesota North Stars. He was a defenseman. But his wife sat next to my best friend's wife on an airplane a few months earlier. And so the couples became very good friends. And Dan got my number from my friend Tony and called me and said, hey, and I'd met him once. He said, hey, I don't know if this interests you at all, but this guy, Norm Green, just bought the Minnesota North Stars. I said, yeah, I just saw him on TV. I'd watched the thing on TV the night before on the news, the interview with him. I said, yeah, I just saw that on the TV. He said, they called me and asked me if I was interested in being a radio analyst, but I can't travel. I can't do that. I can't take time from my business now. He was a financial guy. And he said, why don't you call him? And so I put on a smothering campaign, man. I said, well, it's not play-by-play, but it's on the air with an NHL team. And I knew that Al Shaver was the guy's name. He was a play-by-play guy in Minnesota for a very long time. For the whole time they were there on radio, 26 years. And he was the guy I grew up listening to. And he was, he was my hero. And so he had health issues the year before, and I knew they hadn't traveled an analyst for the previous couple of years. And Norm Green was coming in, and he wanted to fire everybody. But they talked him into keeping Al, which, so they needed somebody to kind of, Al was old, and he didn't want to go to morning skate anymore, and he needed somebody to make dinner reservations and, and do the pregame and postgame and all that stuff that he didn't want to handle anymore. And I went in, and it was me and a couple of ex-hockey players and a newspaper guy that wasn't very good on the air. And I got it, I got it because I knew my way around communicating. And they liked that I was a play-by-play guy in case something happened to Al. They didn't have to fly somebody to Edmonton or something. So then, of course, after folding the AWA, after sending Major League Volleyball to a premature grave, no, I wasn't done yet. I was not done yet. It was time now to take the National Hockey League out of the state of Minnesota and bring it with me to Dallas, Texas.
Oh, that's fantastic.
The power you've wielded in your
power
career.
I have wielded over
That's
all
one
these
heck
years.
of a cross to bear, man. Now,
Boy.
that's just
Unbelievable. I don't know if
can't
we're
even
finished with
fathom
wrestling.
that.
I don't know if we were finished with wrestling because I didn't want to. Yeah. Okay.
No, I think that's pretty much it. So with wrestling, at least. So you go to Dallas with the Stars.
Yeah.
They wind up getting really good in the late 90s.
Yeah.
Just going to say it. Brett Hull's skate was in the crease. Let's be real
Oh,
here.
that's right. You're the hot shit guy.
Yeah,
Well, I have an
Dominic
answer for that
Hasek
one, too.
fan.
I have a slightly apologist answer for that, but it's also not a bad answer. And
Go
the
ahead.
Hull goal in 99 in overtime is, from the Buffalo side of things, they had scored one goal in the previous 9 periods of hockey against the Dallas Stars. Their power play was 0 for its final 17.
Awful.
And their top 5 scorers in the regular season contributed a total of 2 goals and were like minus 10 or something.
Yeah.
So it's, when you get in a position where a bounce or a call can beat you, sometimes that happens. However, on the call, it was that call enforced all year, but it was always a 2-man call. It was one guy was shooting and one guy's skate was in the crease. Very rarely was it one guy with the puck with his skate in the crease. So it was funny, but it did change. Brian Lewis lost his job, the head director of officiating in the National Hockey League. Protocols were put in. They blasted those doors open, right? and on the ice, and the media was on the ice before anybody checked anything. And now there's protocols in place, because I've covered Stanley Cup finals since, where the doors are basically held shut by guards, and you go on the ice after the NHL says, we've reviewed it, everybody's fine, go ahead. So, yeah. So that was a very famous goal. But yeah,
No kidding.
okay. I cut you off, but go ahead.
No, it's okay.
That might get
That
cut
was-
from the thing anyway. We're just going
Not
so
at all.
long. I don't know.
This is going to be because we knew when we reached out to you, and we could kind of tell with the back and forth that you were going to be a good interview. But now, after talking to you for a little bit, we're going to have to bring you back sometimes to just talk hockey, even.
Sure,
we can just go, because you're definitely someone who we can. I feel like with your history of the things you've covered, just so you have so much knowledge all around. So then you're pretty much set, once you get that job, right? I mean, it's just, you're at the point where you've got the one of the jobs you've wanted your whole life, and you're in a great situation.
Right. Well, Al didn't move to Dallas. He was done, right? He's like, I'm old. I'm not moving to Dallas, Texas. So, and then we still had some unwinding to do in Dallas. It took me another couple of years to get finally into the play-by-play chair. But there I stayed for about 20 years. And it was awesome. And like you said, I think it was, I don't remember which one of you said this, but by committee, we are so perfectly there. The Cowboys had finished their 3 Super Bowls. Those guys were gone. The Rangers were terrible. The Mavericks weren't on anybody's radar. And in we come into this vacuum in the Metroplex. And there's a sports radio station in Dallas with which I would think you're familiar, The Ticket.
Yep.
And The Ticket is, a Marconi winning station, it's one of the great sports talk shows, sports talk stations, probably in the United States, it is. But it got there the same year we did. And it was just a bunch of guys trying to figure out how to put radio on. And nobody, none of the big boys, the Rangers or the Mavericks or the Cowboys, they didn't want anything to do with them. And they didn't understand this new sort of dynamic yet. And they came to us and we went, yeah, man, let's do this together. And it was great. And so we built it up, and Tom Hicks came in, and, we could do a whole segment on Tom Hicks. But Tom Hicks came in and bought us, and then at one point owned the Texas Rangers, and he put a lot of money into a pre-cap era, and we were loaded, and we had some great years, and won in 99, and now they're back, and I'm very confused as to exactly why they're back and how they're back, but they're back in the Stanley Cup final. I couldn't be happier for them.
Ralph, Andrew and I were going back and forth a little bit earlier today too. We've been having such a fun time talking. We're gonna have to bring the mood down just a little bit. But you said it wasn't the worst of news that we were reading through in the article. I'm someone who's a cancer survivor. I had non-Hodgkin's lymphoma myself 10 years ago, and we read earlier that you have been talking about now how you are suffering with us. Tell us a little bit about what you're going through right now and how things are going for you.
Well, actually, as you can hear, I'm pretty good.
Yeah.
I will tell you that I did rest up for this today because I wanted to be fresh as a daisy.
We're honored.
And I feel, thank you. I feel daisy fresh. I don't know what that means, but okay. So
You sound it too.
Gino,
you sound it too.
I'll tell you what, Gino, because this really struck me today too. Is I got a couple of my bills today, and I'm in California, and I'm not without means, and I've done okay, and I've got good insurance, and I'm not yet at Medicare, and my good insurance paid an extremely high number of all the bills so far. I mean, I couldn't be happier that it's worked out the way it is. And I understand, that when you were going through yours, you fought a hard battle with insurance and that, right?
Yep. It was a really in-between point of my, when I was still, right before the Obamacare stuff kicked in. And so it was in the only 8 months of my life when I didn't have insurance was when I got sick, which is really crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think about that because I think about all the people in the gaps, and especially now, and I know I don't want to get into politics or anything, but, especially with all the things that are happening and so much of healthcare tied to employment and all of that, I'm so grateful that I have good insurance, and I'm hopeful that everyone, and people like your case, where you just kind of got gapped, and that happened to me one time. You just kind of got gapped, and that shouldn't happen here.
No.
It just shouldn't happen. I mean, we should all be able to get taken care of if we're sick. And so mine is, early stage bladder cancer. They got it early, but they had to do a couple of surgeries to clear the way. And I don't even want to tell you what like, it's just, I mean, it's just, I mean, I know why now my grandpa had the pad on his lazy boy chair. Yeah. Oh yeah. So, but no, I mean, like I have great doctors. I'm getting great counsel. I have my daughter moved in with me because she was in LA and, her business shut down too. And so that's actually worked out good. So she's here and we hang out together and we watch hockey together and I try not to drive her nuts. And, it's been great. So I start my cancer therapy here in a couple of weeks because I just had 2 surgeries and, I'm very grateful. Every day I make a list of the 10 things I'm most grateful for. And I do it every single day.
Great exercise.
And it's a great exercise. And that's another one to pass along to the kids. Listen, and start with there's toilet paper on the roll. Seriously. Because you know what? I used to do that years and years ago. There's toilet paper on the roll. And then COVID comes, right? And
there's no TP anywhere.
Hey, I might not have toilet paper on the roll tomorrow. Be really happy that, today I wrote down, I drove my car to the drugstore with my daughter. She let me drive today. It's about 8 minutes away, but I did that. And I was really thankful I could drive my car, and I'm really thankful I can go on the air with you guys here because it's so fun to go back through all this stuff. And it's so fun to talk to people who are interested by it. Because it's just a part of my life that you guys are out there, man. Those AWA people are out there.
Oh,
they're out there.
Ringside Ralph, man. You're a cult classic
I'm still
figure.
Ringside Ralph.
So many people.
I got the license plate, RNGSIDE, Minnesota plate from those years, and I got it still. Yeah.
That is great. So we got to ask, too, there was one more, because we're all big horse racing guys. I mean, a lot of we met each other, all the 3 of us, covering horse racing in different ways, and you have a connection to horse racing with your dad.
I have a couple of connections. My father, a long-time horse racing enthusiast. We used to go when we'd go visit my relatives in California. Where there was always at least one trip to, Bay Meadows, Golden Gate Park, Del Mar, Hollywood, and of course, yes, I know you're familiar with it, Santa Anita. And that's where we'd go, and it was really fun. And so my dad, who was a business attorney in Minneapolis, he died 2 years ago. And he was a really awesome guy. He taught me the value of being prepared before you go into something, and taught me the value of hard work, and taught me, to be passionate about what I'm doing. And he had a passion for horse racing, and he owned horses for a while, but then he could see that the track might be losing some stuff at Canterbury Park, and he really helped them keep live racing at Canterbury and get new ownership in, and it really worked out well. He was the chairman of the Minnesota Racing Commission for, I think, 2 separate appointments, and was till he died 2 years ago. And my brother has sort of picked up the ownership mantle. By a Nose Stables, Robertino Diodoro, do you know him?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. He's his trainer, and they had a big win this year. Amazing Vision won 100K stakes in Arkansas.
Wow.
And missing his right eye. Amazing Vision.
Oh.
So, in a business where, listen, as my Uncle Jimmy used to say, don't get into any business where what you own eats while you're sleeping. In that business, they have actually had a pretty good year, pretty good last couple of years. So anyway, so horse racing, I went last year to receive posthumously the Hall of Fame. That my dad's in the Canterbury Park Hall of Fame, Ralph Strangis Sr. And so I went last year and picked up the plaque and was able to give a speech on behalf of my dad and his love for horse racing. And it was awesome. And then, of course, about a month ago, I get a text from my degenerate gambling friend, Eddie Olczyk.
Eddie O, nice.
Right. Yeah. But you might have seen him on NBC. Edzo texts me just a picture he had taken to the screen of the Ralph Strangis race. There was a Ralph Strangis race like a month ago. I didn't even know.
The memorial or whatever. Yeah.
The memorial or whatever. And, listen, during COVID, I check myself all the time. I'm like, these guys, they're running the track. They got a million things to do. they want to make sure they get Ralph's race in before, something happens to the track shuts or whatever. And they're not going to remember everybody this year or whatever happened. Right. So of course it's Edzo, that sent to me, goes, 'cause of course on a Tuesday night or whatever, he's betting, he's betting some $12,000 race in Canterbury. Right. And so it's like, yeah, well, Eddie, and the other thing about Eddie Olczyk is he won the pick six once at Hollywood. He won for $600,000. Eddie Olczyk did. And of course, the line we all use is, Eddie, that's great. Only 4 more and you're even.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've been around it my whole life. I always enjoyed going out. Been to some of the great tracks in the country, and Belmont, and I've been to Keeneland, and it's awesome. Like I really enjoy that too. So, and I know you guys are big into this, so that's good. Yeah.
Ralph, I mean, this was such a treat for us. We got to just go around the horn with you, go through your history, talk a little bit of wrestling, but honestly, you're such an interesting guy. I feel like we could do this for 2 or 3 hours and still have so much more like meat left on the bone.
And we haven't even talked about the Beverly Hills Knockouts, for goodness sake.
Oh, Beverly Hills Knockouts! Oh my gosh, the Beverly
More Vietnam flashbacks, Ralph.
Give me the other ones. What were the other teams?
Okay, this is what I've got. This is the match lineup, and then we'll let you go.
Right.
But the match lineup, Tommy Jammer against Tom Burton.
Okay.
The Destruction Crew, which was Mike Enos
and Wayne the Train Bloom.
Yep. Against Jerry Lynn and Ricky Rice. And Jerry Lynn, of course, had a tremendous career. He's in a bunch of different Hall of Fames.
Mm-hmm.
The Beverly Hills Knockouts match was Slaughterhouse Shawn against the Blonde Bomber.
And you were so funny throughout that match. There was the woman outside was named
Mustang Sally,
and so you kept calling the Slaughterhouse Sally, and Greg was laughing. It was hilarious. Oh my! It was so funny. It was so funny.
And there were no rules. Whatever rules.
I remember that.
And Greg kind of explained the rules at one point, and then the woman just throws her gloves off and starts wrestling, and you're like, Greg, what's going on? And he's like, I don't even know. It was just, it was great. Oh yeah.
Cocktail Candy Divine too. I remember.
There was a King of the Hill match with Paul Diamond and Colonel You Could Never Do This Gimmick Now De Beers. And the main event was Sergeant Slaughter against the Terminator, who was the subject of a Darin question last week when he saw the card and went, who the hell is the Terminator?
Oh my God. Well, I remember too, though, some of the others. I know you guys, we got to go, but they had Vern had a really good relationship with like people in town. I mean, he'd been booking events for a long time, and so the Met Center let him do one last one, and it was I don't think we had 5,000 people in there, but we friggin' put the curtains up and pulled it up, and and it looked pretty good. But Ric Flair was there, and Ric Flair wrestled. And I was there at ringside to watch Ric Flair wrestle.
Oh, that's awesome.
That was awesome. And I got to do some ring announcing too, standing in the ring. And, and that's fun. That to me was actually like, I want to be Michael Buffer when I grow up. That's pretty cool stuff too. So I've had a great career, fellas. I've done a lot of things, and I'm really happy that you let me share some of that with you today.
Is there anything like social media wise, or is there anywhere out there where anyone wants to follow along or see how you do, check in on you, anything like that, or no?
Right now, I've been taking a social media break, and you know what? It's fantastic.
It is.
It is fan. I mean, you got to have it for commerce, and I had it for commerce for a while, and I don't watch news. I'm really.
It's nice to check out. It is.
I'm checking out.
Well, we'll have to check in with you here every now and then to keep people updated on what's going on with you. We'll check in on the NHL. We'll get your opinion on other sports stuff going out there, anything that you're watching, because, man, this is a blast, and we would really love to have you back. And even if it's an AWA show or anything at all, I mean, we're gonna hit you up on that. And thank you so much. We'll be praying for you. We'll be thinking about you and the family. And if you need anything at all, someone who's been through some of the stuff that you're going to be going through, please reach out to me. I'd love to help you out in any way and share some tricks of the trade.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's nice to have all these people being so nice. So thank you, and good luck with your show and everything too. And like I say, the guys, as my very dear friend, the late Dave Strader used to say, play-by-play man extraordinaire. He'd say, remember, fellas, There's no I in team, but there's 2 I's in invoice. So keep working hard out there. Will ya? Keep working
that's
hard.
great.
Keep
Thank you so
That's
much,
what
Ralph.
Strader used to say that. I'd say, where are you going this week? He's, I got to do a basketball game for you. He goes, remember, there's 2 I's in invoice. And I said, I understand. Go.
Hey,
So, okay, fellas.
Great way to sign off, Ralph Strangis. Awesome, man. We look forward to talking to you again. You have a great rest of your week with the family. Hope you feel better. And this was just such a treat for us. Thanks so much, Ralph.
Yep. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Folks, don't go anywhere. We will be right back with the play-by-play. We'll go through the show, the matches, and we'll really break down and have a good laugh with that. So a big thanks again to Ralph.
One of the sponsors of That's What G Said podcast is Cindy Carava, full-service realtor, and I am here over in Glendora at Coldwell Banker with Cindy Carava. Cindy, how was 2019 for you? Tell us a little bit about what kind of stuff you were working on.
Hi, Gino. Thanks for having me. 2019 was just really great. I had a great year selling homes all the way from Altadena, Arcadia, Monrovia, out to Upland and Ontario just recently. The market has been really good. We're looking forward to 2020 with an increase in home prices about 5.8% this year, opposed to last year where it was a little softer. We saw more like homes averaging about 3.5% in increase in value. It's also looking great for buyers. The interest rates right now are going to be staying under 4%. So if you've been on the fence about thinking about buying a home, now is the time to do so with interest rates still staying low.
And you offer more services than just the buying, selling, and leasing homes. Tell us about some of the other services that you offer and what a full-service realtor really is.
So you're right, Gino. Besides me being a full-service realtor of finding properties for my clients to buy or selling their homes or finding rentals for them, I also have a plethora of resources like handyman, contractors, electricians, plumbers. I even, if like I said, if you're thinking about getting a home loan, I actually work with 2 great lenders that I can recommend to anybody.
And you're all over the internet, social media, websites. Let us know some of the places where we can find you. I know I've seen some reviews on Yelp and on Zillow. Everyone always has positive things to say. Everybody hears me raving about you all the time. But where can everyone else find out information about you or contact?
Thank you, Gino. Yeah, I am on Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn. And you can contact me on my website, which is www.cindycarava.com, or my email, which is cindyc.realtor@gmail.com, or feel free to call or text me on my cell phone, which is 626-394-6400.
Cindy is awesome. She's one of the kindest and most genuine people I've ever met. I promise you, you will enjoy every minute you interact with her. So thank you very much, Cindy. Appreciate all of your support from That's What G Said podcast.
Thank you, Gino. Have a great day, everyone.
And a big thank you to Ralph. Andrew, great job getting Ralph. You reached out to him. Literally, you just told me, you're like, I reached out to Ralph asking him if he had any memories of this. And you could tell he's such a great interview. He's got so much to say. As he mentioned, I think he loved being able to spend a half hour, 45 minutes with us, kind of looking back on this part of his life and a little bit of a history run through him. That was a lot of fun. Good job, Andrew.
Thank you very much. I had no idea what to expect because I found his website and I sent him this email. And the first line of the email is, I understand this is a total long shot, but hear me out. And usually when you start an email like that, you don't hear a whole heck of a lot back. But I put punch the button, Greg, in at the bottom. And as he mentioned, that was a flashback. Yeah. And it was such a blast being able to talk to somebody who was there, being able to get as definitive an answer as we could to something nobody's really been able to answer or admit to as far as who started the Team Challenge series. And, of course, going through everywhere he's been in his career. Just a fascinating guy. That was really cool.
That was. So now we got all the nice stuff out of the way, Darin. We know Andrew was picking on us here with this one. I got to say, I think, Darin, I texted you before we recorded this show, and I said, effing Andrew with us watching this show. And I think your response back to me was, this is one of the worst things I've ever watched. And but it is one of those things, DZ, in that it's funny. You get some laughs out of it, and it's not long. It's not even 40 minutes on the WWE Network. You can see what they're trying to do. but it's just one of those things where it's like, it's something that Vince might have been able to pull off with more money, with better technology, getting the right people. It was just the AWA, the last ditch. There's not a lot of money still out there for them, and they're trying something. And this was just, here's the green screen. Let's see how much we can do with this thing.
Yeah, I'll put it this way. If this thing was 2.5 hours, there's a good chance that I would never speak to Andrew again. Look,
so what you're saying is
Ralph, having Ralph on was great, and it almost redeemed Andrew for being sick.
Well, so just to be clear, what you're saying is once I pick AWA Super Clash 4, which came after this, I should expect like anthrax in the mail.
And you'll never hear from Darin except for the times we talk on this. Like, he's never going to respond to a text.
It'll be like the bands that don't talk to each other until they're singing.
And just perform.
Yeah. The best way that I could describe this, I think a couple of months ago we did SummerSlam '89. And we talked about Zeus being in the main event, and I think my quote was, having Zeus in the main event was finally getting the hottest girl in school to agree to go out with you. And you go out with her a couple of times, and on the third date, the clothes start to come off, things get hot and heavy, and you find out that she actually has a really hairy back. This is going on a date with the ugliest girl in school, knowing going into the date that it's going to be terrible, and you can't possibly figure out any way that it's going to be worse until you find out that she's actually a serial killer and she eats her victims, and you are what's on the menu for dinner.
Okay, so we'll be able to go through it, as we do, and we'll just get right into it, and we'll go segment by segment. So
I will say one thing really quick before we start.
Okay,
I'm going to give a nod to a place we all used to work at. They have every once in a while, for horses that look completely hopeless, a challenge wherein a host is forced to say one nice thing. I am going to take this challenge. I am going to say one nice thing about every segment on this show, and then I'm going to join in with you guys in burying it. But again, this is the AWA historian in me, because I will admit, as bad as this was, and as bad as most late 80s AWA stuff was, there is some stuff from the ESPN Classic library that doesn't suck. So it draws you in a little bit if you find the right episodes. I've got a soft spot for late 80s AWA, as stupid as it sounds. So off we go. Punch the button, Gino.
Okay. So we're opening package is the AWA Team Challenge Series. And this was supposed to be a pilot that they were going to hopefully be using to send to ESPN, syndicate. This was something that the idea behind the Team Challenge Series was they're constantly losing talent now to the bigger companies. And so by having this team set up, they could have different wrestlers on each team, and it wouldn't be so weird when there's wrestlers moving in and out on different teams. It's a lot easier when you have this fluid in motion. So this is supposed to be the pilot. We have an opening package, American flag, then some cheerleaders and the women in bikinis, the Foxy boxing, and then a flash of some wrestling matches. We see a look at Sergeant Slaughter in the ring, and then it's Vern Gagne, and he's sitting down out by a lake with his dog, and he welcomes us in, and he introduces the team.
Don't forget the what looks like a kayak in front of him,
just like half poking out,
bobbing up and down in the water.
It's bizarre. Like the setup, you can't even see. It'd be different if they were back a little so you could see the boat, or he's sitting in it with the dog or something. But there's like the corner of it coming up, and he says the Team Challenge Series with new technology is going to bring you the action like never before. And then he even teases coming back out of retirement, and he kind of chuckles about that. Then we get into the control room / production. It looks like they're in a production truck, honestly. It looks like they're in a truck, but it could be a room.
It's called satellite base, Gino. Say it correctly.
Satellite base. with Ralph, who we were just talking to, Ralph Strangis and Greg Gagne. And they welcome us to the brand new AWA, the world's greatest wrestling. We're going to have Beverly Hills knockouts and new exciting rock and roll, a new era in pro wrestling. And Gagne tells the fans that we are going to feel the things he felt in the ring for 16 years. And here we go. Our first match is Tommy Jammer against Tom Burton. And the one thing you'll notice, so Tommy Jammer, when he's making his way to the ring, and I listened in to Eric Bischoff talking about this last night. You can find it, if you're just looking up like the Team Challenge series, it's one of the things that pops up. And he talks about how it was basically just 2 green screens on each side, and the wrestlers just walked through it, pretended like they were reacting to nothing. Literally nothing. Now, remember, this isn't like now when people are used to doing green screens and they've gotten these are wrestlers, not actors, too. They have no clue what really they're supposed to do and respond and react. And the thing that we find very quickly is there's one roll of B-roll. They have one roll of B-roll of the fans. And it's the same freaking people on every entrance that they put in doing the same celebration. It's like a 6-second little cut that they have that they just show every time somebody enters. And you don't notice it as much the first couple matches because they only have one entrance. It's just Tommy Jammer, and then the second match it's only the Destruction Crew entrance. But in the final match, or in the main event match, when you see both come out, it's funny because then you really notice that the guy is like getting up, falling out, and he does the same thing again. It's just hilarious.
Well, what's even better is that what they tried, it's the same exact image
Mirrored.
both sides,
Mm-hmm.
mirrored. So it's almost as if they said, hey, you know what we could do to save a buck? We only need to take this one piece of B-roll, and if we flip it backwards, maybe nobody will notice. Now, the unfortunate thing for them is that there's a guy wearing what I could only describe as, I don't know, a yellow version of a Where's Waldo outfit who sticks out like a sore thumb on both sides. And it's like, wait a minute. What are the chances that there's a guy in a yellow and black plaid button down on both sides? So what do you do in modern technology? You pause it. And when you pause it, you go, holy shit. That's the same image on both sides.
It is hilarious. So Tommy Jammer comes down to the ring. And it is funny, though, when you look at it, like I said, nowadays, this is like something that a company would try in a COVID era at this time. If there was like COVID in 1989 or 1990 and they couldn't, this would have been something that they would have tried using the green screen like this. It's just the other thing, the shots.
We left one thing out, Gino. We forgot to mention on those green screens, those images. It's not bad enough that it's
there. That's where I was going. Yes.
It's in fast forward.
Yes.
They're moving at 1,000 miles an hour.
It's not like just
it was
people
the 80s.
cheering.
It was the 80s. It was professional wrestling. You had to think there was some cocaine back there for the fans.
Yeah.
I mean, the AWA was known for its hospitality.
So, and the stock footage that they're showing is not people in an arena.
They're in a bar.
It's people at bars or at restaurants, like a convention, even one of them.
Restaurants coast to coast.
Restaurant. And then they even mention it. Ralph mentions it at one point, like later on in the show, that this is being piped into sports bars all over the nation or whatever. Which
you know what I figured out? So that B-roll that you're talking about that looks like it's in a sports bar. If you're big on Twitter and you know some of like the GIFs that people use to describe certain things. So there's a famous GIF that you could take any particular event and put it on the giant screen behind the bar, and there's this massive reaction in the bar when like something great happens.
Yes.
I finally believe that we have uncovered the origins
the first one
of that bar, and it is the B-roll to the AWA Team Challenge
Series. It's unbelievable. So they get into the ring. So Tommy Jammer gets down to the ring after his entrance, and in the ring is waiting for him is Tom Burton. And I will say, I don't mind the way that the ring actually with no fans in the back, the way they darken it out. It's kind of like what they do at UFC fights or other places, and they got kind of like a smoke going in the background. Like, the look of the arena for not having fans was an absurd. That was one of the least absurd things on this show, And to be honest, this is a really quick match, and the action in the ring is some of the least absurd stuff that we see. I don't even mind the trying to have it in sort of like a first person perspective. We're giving you shots that are a little more close up that you'd never see, that kind of thing. It just, this match, Andrew, it's like, we think Kevin Dunn does a lot of cuts. Oh my goodness. This is just cut, slash, cut, boom, boom, clap, boom, slash, here's fans, slash, fans, boom, cut, more fans, boom, cut. I mean, it's just, this match goes 2 minutes. What we get at one point, we get a couple nice arm drags by Jammer, but Tom Burton calls a timeout. And the referee gives him the timeout, which is hilarious. He gets down to one knee and he says timeout, and the ref comes over and actually gives him the timeout.
All right. So I'm going to go back to the opening, and I'm going to do the say one nice thing for the segments that we talked about here. So for the opening, the flag was intact. They didn't burn the flag. For Vern's segment, the dog was a very good dog who is deserving of many pats on the head.
Well behaved.
Yep. And in this one, Tommy Jammer actually has an okay look. He's a good-looking guy, muscular dude, can move a little bit. AWA saw something in him, and at their final big event, Super Clash 4, which I mentioned, legendarily awful show. Darin, I'm just saying it, at some point down the line, not in a couple of weeks, more like a couple of months, when I've built up enough goodwill to be able to piss it all away. He wrestles and beats Tully Blanchard, who was in AWA because he had washed out of NWA and WWF at that point, and his father, Joe Blanchard, was the authority figure at that point. So they have a pretty lousy match, but Jammer goes over. Now, this gives us the first instance of the slow motion replay. Ralph yells, punch the button. We get a body slam. Jammer hits the mat, and it sounds like there's an earthquake. Ladies and gentlemen, special effects in 1989. Now, the match, as you mentioned, wasn't horrible. It was a squash match. It was what it was supposed to be. Jammer gets a power slam, gets a big splash for the win. Greg has a line at the end that is one of many, wait, what lines when he calls Tommy Jammer, and I'm quoting here, a man's man and a lady's dream. What?
Greg is so, just plain. Right? He's so plain. He's
trying, but he has no charisma.
No.
And that's what held him back during
his
a wrestler
career. Yeah, he's just a hand.
Yeah,
he's just a mid-card guy,
Very good tag guy. Ralph mentioned the high flyers with Brunzell. He's a very sound technical wrestler, good hand in the ring. And from what Ralph was saying, he had a sense of where the business was going, probably better than his father did. Problem was, he was just never a great promo. He never had this terrific look. He had his dad's last name, and he had a good move set, but that was never enough to really get him to where Vern probably thought he deserved to be.
So now we get to promo backstage. It is Baron von Raschke and Sergeant Slaughter talking about their teams. And it's going to be Paul Diamond versus for Baron's team versus Colonel De Beers for Sergeant Slaughter's team in an over-the-top rope King of the Hill match later on tonight. Sergeant Slaughter said he chose De Beers because De Beers had always tossed him over the rope in their previous matches. That's why he picked the Colonel. And the one thing, DZ, that we noticed early on, I couldn't believe this was before the Slaughter that we saw in the main event, in late 90 and into 91 with the Warrior and with Hogan, because he is massive here. And we see it later in the show. I mean, when he wrestles, but he is the biggest I can ever remember seeing the Sarge.
Yeah, he is. And it's funny because he says a line at the end of the show that we'll talk about that.
Oh, yeah.
Makes it even funnier. But, yeah, he is large. Part of this interview, I don't even understand what the Clawmaster is saying at different times. I rewound it back like twice to try to draw sense out of it, and at that point I just gave up caring.
Yeah.
because I really said to myself, it really doesn't matter what you're saying, But yeah, it's and you get more. Anyway, the bottom line is you get a feel for what the promos are going to be like, and that kind of segues towards the next promo, which is what is going to eventually be the team of the Beverly Brothers.
Yep.
As we get to know them in WWF. What was it? Destruction Crew? Was that
Destruction?
The name of it?
Isn't it so funny? You see these guys, and it's like, how the hell does Vince go, these guys are the Beverly Brothers? Because I will say, their gimmick is like a little cartoony, especially with the green screen stuff, but they look like tough guys.
They do.
The way that they're presented, they look like big, strong guys.
Yeah, and a couple of things on this promo. So just because I really wanted to get a feel for everything that was going on from a production standpoint. So when you watch the promo in the background, they come out on the screen with sledgehammers, and they are hitting the green screen to make a building fall down.
Yeah.
So I'm looking and I want to get an idea of what that building is. And I see a sign on top of the building that says Curtis Hotel. Lo and behold, the footage is from 1984, and there is a hotel in Minneapolis, Minnesota, that was built 80 years prior called the Curtis Hotel, which was a famous landmark in Minneapolis.
That tidbit.
That was the actual footage of the hotel being demolished. Now, the real funny part of it is that this is a Minnesota-based company that is now showing you the video of a famous landmark that apparently that was demolished 5 years prior. So you figure everybody in Minnesota knows what the Curtis Hotel is.
What it is.
But apparently you have to believe that these guys just demolished it in front of your very eyes.
Just knocked the building down.
Okay, I'm point of order. Point of order. Do we know that the Destruction Crew did not have a time machine?
Did we know they were not part of that crew?
Listen,
maybe they were just documenting the same event that happened years later.
Maybe. Now, I mean, listen, being a New York City resident, the large plumes of smoke coming out of a city with skyscrapers in the background kind of left me a little queasy for obvious reasons. Yeah. So that kind of struck me because it was kind of eerie, but it was, look, I speaking about Destruction Crew themselves, when they came on, I was like, oh, Beverly Brothers.
Me too. I did the same thing.
And then I listened to them talk, and I'm like, furthest thing in the world from the Beverly Brothers.
Right?
Yeah.
Yep.
So
it was hilarious.
I found that interesting. And hey, at worst case scenario, it's always cool to see Joey Valiant too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
now,
go ahead,
really quick. So the story with that is, first of all, Vern loved him some tough Minnesota guys from, either football teams or bar bouncers or whatever. If you watched The Dark Side of the Ring on the Road Warriors, you know that there were a lot of these guys to go around. If you were a guy in your early 20s, in the late 70s, early to mid 80s in Minnesota, chances are you rubbed shoulders with a lot of professional wrestlers, and chances are in at least one instance you got knocked on the floor by one of them. It must have been a very interesting existence. And Mike Enos and Wayne Bloom were two of those guys. Mike Enos was a really good hand for WCW for a while, a couple of years after the Beverly Brothers run. He was one of the guys in the ring when Scott Hall did his run-in to kick off the NWO storyline. He had a couple of good years after that. Wayne Bloom was a decent hand as well. In this instance, they were still two fairly young guys trying to make names for themselves, and this was the gimmick they had. They had Johnny Valiant as the manager. Now, my one nice thing for both this segment and the one before it, for the Slaughter and Baron von Raschke thing, the one nice thing is Baron von Raschke is not a Nazi. He broke in down in Texas with Fritz von Erich, and both of them were legitimate goose-stepping Nazis that drew heel heat, the likes of which you would not believe.
Yeah.
Well, as Raschke gets older and his career takes the turns that it does, he winds up basically being the beloved grizzled veteran type, to where it's just generally accepted that the guy doesn't speak English all that well, and his big catchphrase is, and that is all the people need to know. Well, if you listen to out-of-character interviews with the guy, he's a normal dude.
Yeah.
It's jarring. If you haven't seen the AWA documentary, there are some holes. There are some things where WWE does revisionist history, but it's an entertaining use of 2 hours. Can't recommend that highly enough. He's one of the guys that they interview. And for the Destruction Crew thing, they try to do a Road Warrior impression with this. And if you view it as a Road Warrior impression, it becomes 100 times funnier.
They enter the ring surrounded by the green screens of yelling fans that we described earlier.
And they kiss the sledgehammers. Don't forget they kiss
those
the
sledgehammers. They're accompanied to the ring by the manager, luscious Johnny Valiant. And
foreshadowing of Triple H, by the way.
Yeah, here we go, the sledgehammer, the future game. Cerebral assassins right here walking to the ring. Greg gives some background on the both of them and some real-life history on them, sports they played, things they have, some accomplishments. They've got the orange construction vests on, and Ralph now says this is where he says the fans are looking on from sports bars watching. Enos is in charge early. You know what? This match, like they worked hard. You know, because the quote-unquote jobber team in here that included Jerry Lynn, who we know is a good worker down the line, and this was supposed to be, you know, a match to get the tag team, the Destruction Crew over, but they were getting beat up by the baby faces for a while in here, and it wasn't just a complete squash. The good guys got some shine. Let's see, Enos was in charge early, so we get these real close-up shots, and I don't mind the shots, just the cuts back and forth, too many, back. The different close-up angles are cool. Those are things that I thought were actually sort of innovative that you didn't see, because you watch other wrestling shows and you get the same shots. These ones were actually giving you some different shots, which were cool. Jerry Lynn takes control. Then Ricky Rice was in for the double team. They work on the crew for a minute. Enos to the eyes, and then Bloom gets tossed around by Rice for a while. Valiant distracts the ref. Enos helps the double team. Bloom's in charge. The crew is in control. You get a big power slam by Enos, and then the ref is distracted, and the crew ends up hitting the Doomsday. Real cool with putting the opponent on their shoulders and the flying clothesline off the top. Flynn takes a great bump here. And Gagne's were very upset that they would go up the top rope when the ref was distracted. Because remember, with AWA, some of the rules are, no top ropes, no throwing each other. You can't come off the top rope. You can't throw someone over the top rope. Those are things that would result in a disqualification. So, Darin, again, when we look at a lot of the goofy stuff here, like if you just took the 4 or 5 minutes of ring work, these guys are actually, like, the Beverly Brothers aren't bad workers, and Flynn's not a bad worker, and so these guys it's okay. It's just, it's not really much. It's just like an okay few minute match, but it's so funny to see them here and then how they were repackaged as the Beverly Brothers. I really just couldn't get over it.
Yeah, no, the wrestling part of this was not terrible. I think it is kind of funny that, they clearly were trying to make this their version of the, Road Warriors, and they even stole their finisher in the process, because when they went to WWF at the time, Vince said, you're not using that finisher. And they came up with that, I think it was called like the Shaker Heights Spike that I think they almost killed 5 people with. This particular move, I remember listening to Ralph Lev say, I think he broke his neck. Which I think he said during 3 matches. I think he broke his neck. That's terrible. I think he broke his neck. So that was kind of funny. Then at the end, you get our first Eric Bischoff sighting.
What the hell is on his head?
I don't.
It's like a blonde. Is that blonde hair with a mullet? Like it's like
I honestly think, looking back at this, I had never seen Bischoff at this time.
No, me neither.
The only Bischoff that I know is the jet black hair Bischoff when he's in WCW, and then obviously, the gray-white hair when he comes back. After watching this, I became convinced that Eric Bischoff was prematurely graying.
Must have been.
And actually dyed his hair jet black to get rid of the gray when he went to WCW. Now, on top of that, half this interview, I can't even hear the
It's inaudible. You can't
How do
hear
you
a thing.
This is a taped show.
Yeah.
This isn't live.
Yeah.
How do you put that on with the microphone not working on a taped show?
Don't know, but they basically saw it and go, it'll give it a real feel. Leave it alone. Good job, Eric. Let's move on.
He's literally, so he comes out to the ring to try to get a word with, the Destruction Crew and Valiant after the match, and we hear really nothing. Nothing. Like, they put it up and it's just Valiant, like, well, we're going to get the titles, blah, blah. And that's, before Bischoff is like freaking out, looking around like he can't, then back to you. It is, you get nothing out of the interaction after the match whatsoever. Before we then get back to Ralph and Greg. Andrew, anything else to say before we move to the next segment?
I'm pretty happy that we gave this match its due because this match, I actually didn't hate it.
Me neither. No, the action was fine.
Yeah. Jerry Lynn, very good worker. Ricky Rice had a couple of tag teams in the AWA and in a couple of other independent promotions. He wasn't a bad worker. And Enos and Bloom, we've already touched on. This is the one nice thing here is the match wasn't bad. You had Mike Enos doing his power moves. He's a guy that if he'd have been 2 or 3 inches taller, could have gone a lot further because he had a good shoulder breaker, really good power slam, and they do the Doomsday Device off the top rope. They did get a little bit of a run in WWF as the Beverly Brothers, and then Enos went off to do his thing in WCW. But the weird stuff starts after the match with the interview with Bischoff, which, it's inaudible, whatever. Oh, maybe it was technical difficulties, and we move on. They go to break. They come back, and we get more green screen magic, complete with Sergeant Slaughter and Colonel De Beers.
Oh my God! This gimmick, the Colonel De Beers
20
gimmick.
Minutes on Colonel De Beers. There are so many things that guy was part of because his gimmick was just in the worst possible taste at the worst possible time. You had a guy as part of the South African Army, which at the time was trying to keep its grip on apartheid, one of the most repressive policies in human rights history. And here's Colonel De Beers.
This is just brutal. And so this is just, again, something that you'd never be able to pull off today. And to make it worse, so you get the Sergeant Slaughter promo. Slaughter tells us about the over-the-top rope King of the Hill match. He says De Beers has thrown his carcass over the top. And he says, he likes to win. He doesn't like to lose. An actual line that Slots says. And he says to the Colonel, if you do lose, you will disgrace my team and America. Then De Beers responds and he starts talking. As soon as he starts, we've got some African tribal music that they're playing in the background as if this gimmick isn't bad enough. They're playing this. And he says, he's never lost a war, but he's had some casualties along the way.
What the hell was that?
I know. What? You have had some casualties. You're what? I know. It makes no sense. And he says he's winning for the pride of South Africa. So a lot of the big thing about the Team Challenge series was that your teams are randomly selected, so you could be put together with, which is something that we saw WWF do in the Survivor Series, years later, which we kind of like the idea of that. It's able to kind of spark feuds, and so these two have had a feud, but now Sergeant Slaughter needs to enlist his services to get some points for their team. And which something we haven't mentioned yet, this whole Team Challenge series, the winning team is supposed to get $1 million. $1 million to the winning team to split. So that's the incentive for them to win here. That was
one nice thing.
Yeah.
It is the only time in the history of wrestling where the word communique has been worked into a promo. Congratulations, Colonel De Beers.
Okay, we get back to Greg and Ralph. So we keep, every time we go from like a promo or a match, we check back in with Greg and Ralph in the production room, and they'll set up the next segment for us. They'll kind of put a ribbon on the segment we just saw and then get us ready for the next one. And as Ralph mentioned, I think they're in their sweatsuits, like track suits, but Ralph has kind of got a collared shirt on underneath the jacket too, which he's like, what? Okay. So we then get the intro for the Beverly Hills Knockouts. And I texted Andrew when I was watching this and said, trying to actually document what was going on, because I will try to, when we're watching matches, promos, make my notes through the moves, sets, what's going on. Basically, I'll do my own little taking notes of everything. Some things that I'll say, this was impossible. I mean, this was so hard to try to do that too. And this is so not the AWA. Like, you see this, and this is Vince. This is Vince McMahon stuff. This is not Vern Gagne, AWA.
What this is a fever dream of some pervy wrestling promoter. This may have been a Herb Abrams thing, because here, this is actually what the Beverly Hills Knockouts were. I did a little research before this. The Beverly Hills Knockouts were a group of exotic dancers that were actually trained, at least in part, by Jerry Lynn. Jerry Lynn was the one who was tasked with, okay, here's how you do several basic maneuvers. Otherwise, just go out there in as little clothing as you possibly can and, take up 5 minutes. That's basically what the Beverly Hills Knockouts were, and I don't think I'm doing this match any more justice. So I'm going to leave the floor now to Gino and Darin, both of whom were watching this for the very first time, because I have to tell you, the reaction to this from Gino and Darin, that's one of the reasons why I picked this show. I have been waiting for this for a week, and I'm just going to sit back, relax, and enjoy it.
So we've got it in a bar. They're in a bar, and there's a ring set up that is probably about the size of like a fifth of a regular wrestling ring. This is one of the tiniest little squares that you could possibly. It's like a little bit bigger than the rings that they would ride down to in WrestleMania. When Andre rides down, and it's just slightly bigger than that. And we've got a referee in there and two women with their boxing gloves on, and then a bunch of women all around the ring surrounding it, almost like a lumberjack situation where they're right on the outside of the ropes. And we get a 3-round fight in this small ring. We have the women who are coming out with their with the signs in between each round, and they're dressed up in lingerie. It's the Blonde Bomber versus Slaughterhouse Shawn, and we get shots of fans, a bunch of guys at a bar popping drinks. They're pumped up. And the first round, it's just kind of a back and forth. The women box around, exchanging some shots here and there. But there's just so many cutaways. Cut, boom, cut, fans, boom, bar, back, boom, boom, boom. I mean, you cannot have any idea what's going on, who's hitting who is who. You have absolutely no clue. It is you cannot even keep up with it. I tried to rewind it 5 times. I literally had no idea. And then poor Ralph, like I said, he's calling the Slaughterhouse Shawn, he's calling her Slaughterhouse Sally because the one girl's got her manager is Mustang Sally on the outside, so he's confusing them. And the guys joke about how they'd love to be there. But hey, you know what? This is sanctioned by the Beverly Hills Knockouts Committee, so at least this is a legitimate fight that's sanctioned. The Blonde Bomber gets knocked down, her manager Mustang Sally. The Bomber then just drops her gloves and just goes absolutely nuts. She just starts wrestling, and she hits a short suplex in a tiny ring, and then Greg has no idea what's going on. Ralph is asking, Ralph's like, are they allowed to do this? And I have no, this is definitely different than anything I've ever seen before. Kind of enjoyable to watch, but these two gals are taking a pounding, one of Greg's direct quotes. At one point, somehow Mustang Sally gets thrown in the ring and her clothes are off. Like, I just instantly, like, she's in the ring and then her clothes get ripped off and she's just in, like, what would be a bra and panties. And then she hits a backbreaker. There is just, like, if it sounds insane, it is. I'm probably doing a better job of keeping, like making this seem like it was a structured thing than it was. This was batshit. I mean, this, and what's funny about this is, So both women get knocked down at the end. Slaughterhouse Shawn makes it to her feet and wins. Slaughterhouse Sally is what Ralph keeps saying. This is just it's a mess at the end. But there's nothing to do with the Team Challenge series. This is no points. Nobody's on either team. This has literally zero to do with the entire pilot that they're shooting of this Team Challenge series and the whole concept. Darin, some thoughts.
Thoughts. Okay, thoughts. Number one, you mentioned how this is Vince McMahon.
Right.
This is like 7 years before Vince McMahon even starts to dabble in the idea of having women function in this way. Because at this time in WWF/E, Vince McMahon's women matches were still the Fabulous Moolah versus Wendy Richter type stuff. In one-piece, weird-looking bathing suits. These women are in underwear. Like, literally bra and panties around the ring. Now, the interesting thing about that is that every woman in the shot around the ring are wearing bras, except the two women fighting in the ring, who are just wearing white tank tops, clearly with no bra underneath. You can use your imagination as to how I've reached that conclusion. Then, after the quote-unquote boxing match in the first round, it turns into a wrestling kickboxing boxing match. At one point, the blonde bomber, I believe her name is, removes her gloves rather quickly and does a snap mare, in which she then proceeds to ram her knee into the back of the head neck of her opponent. Now, the funny thing about that is that her opponent is so rattled by the shots to the back of the neck that even after the blonde bomber stops yanking her head into her knee, she proceeds to do it herself 2 more times with no help. So literally the blonde bomber takes her hand off her opponent's head, and her opponent then continues to snap her head back into the blonde bomber's knee 2 more times for the hell of it. Then suddenly, after somehow getting her boxing gloves off, the blonde bomber suddenly has her boxing gloves back on. Don't know how that happened. But yeah, then Mustang Sally comes in and, like you said, performs a backbreaker. And I think they went for the Rocky II finish of they're going to knock each other out, and it's going to be a test of wills as to who can beat the count to 10. And they're waiting with bated breath to see who's going to stand before the count of 10. And that's how the match ends. I don't know what the hell it was. I don't know what it was supposed to be. I can't even imagine what the instructions were to these women going into the match.
What's the rundown? What are they telling you to do?
Yeah, it may have just been just pretend like you beat the shit out of each other for 3 rounds and do whatever the hell you want. And that's pretty much what it looks like. I don't know what it's meant to accomplish. I don't know what its purpose is, but it is exactly what you imagine. It's 2 women scantily dressed in the ring, kicking each other's ass, with a bunch of women in underwear jumping up and down around the ring.
Andrew,
so what you're saying is it's one of the greatest things you've ever seen. Okay, check the box and move on.
I mean, if I don't even have words.
There was so much going on. Like, it was so quick. That was the whole thing about this entire 39 minutes, is that it is like the pace of everything is so insanely fast that you could not just watch this through one time without stopping it and rewinding back 8 times, and over and over and over, because you just miss what the hell just happened. Like,
yeah, the only thought I had to try to intellectually formulate in my mind how this happened is that one of these women said, "Hey, I was in the sorority back at University of Minnesota, and during my hazing, they made us strip down into our underwear and wear oversized boxing gloves, and we had a fight for 3 rounds. And the winner, at the end was the girl who was able to still stand up." That's the only thing that you could possibly think is how they came to whatever this was supposed to be.
Oh my goodness!
You're
AC.
welcome, guys. You are so welcome.
Yeah. This was, again, this show is not long, so please go watch it because it's just hilarious to get an idea of some of these things that we're talking about. Okay, we then are back to Ralph and Greg in the production room. And
Satellite base.
There we go. Ralph says how the AWA has always been on the cutting edge. And Greg lets us know that the winner of the Team Challenge Series will split $1 million. We then take a look at the 3 teams. It's Larry's Legends, Barron's Blitzers, and Sarge's Snipers. And this entire series, if you go look it up, it was hilarious. There is no rhyme or reason to the point system. They are obviously just adding points from teams, subtracting points from teams, adding stuff on all along the way. There's at one point a turkey on a pole match and all these bizarre matches throughout the series. And it was just doing anything you could to try to throw shit at a wall at this point to see if it could stick because they were struggling. They were struggling trying to keep up with Vince, and they were losing a ton of their talent. So they figured, hey, we have to do something different. We can't just be less than the WWE. And these are things that you see when someone's struggling with, or when they have no other options, because this isn't Vern. These things aren't Vern. These goofy gimmicks and the foxy boxing stuff, that's just not stuff that he did well. Treating wrestling like a real sport and building competitors, making them seem legitimate. There were a lot of things that Vern did well. Plenty that he did wrong, but there were a lot of things he did well. These things were not it. We then get to the Paul Diamond promo in front of the green screen. Paul Diamond, the future Max Moon, right? He's already
among
in space.
other things, yes.
He's already in space here. He's talking about his match with Colonel De Beers, and he says, "You were sent once by Diamond Dallas Page to eliminate me, but you couldn't do it." He is jacked up. He looks in great shape. He really is in phenomenal shape. And then his entrance through the green screen crowd, same exact B-roll footage that we see 2 seconds later when De Beers comes through. And when De Beers comes in and he takes his shirt off, he looks like your drunk uncle who just takes his shirt off and is like drunk and yelling at someone at your family Christmas party for no reason. And like everybody's like, just put Uncle Jim out in the back. That's what he looks like. He's just like this big dude. He's got a little bit of a belly, but he's a brick, and he goes at a quick pace. We get Paul Diamond with the head scissor takedown a couple times early. These guys are working really hard. I got to give it up. We're laughing at a lot of the production stuff, but they really were working hard in these short matches. And Paul Diamond's super athletic. Then he badly misses on a drop kick that Greg tries to play off when they show it on the replay. He says, he kind of hit him with one foot. De Beers actually hits a headbutt off the top rope. He has Paul Diamond hanging across the ropes in the corner, and he kicks him. So he looks like he's going to go over the top. Remember, this is a King of the Hill match, so the winner to win, you have to throw your opponent over the top. No DQ, no pin, no submission, none of that. So the Colonel actually ends up suplexing Paul Diamond back into the ring. He misses a headbutt, and then Paul is back in control. And you know what? This is a pretty quick pace. This is a decent back and forth. De Beers hits a slingshot when he's got Paul Diamond under the bottom rope, and he slingshots his neck into the bottom, which is a cool spot, and he's in control. And then he's kind of sort of tossing Paul around. He throws Paul what looks like over the top rope, but Paul saves himself. He pulls himself back in, and De Beers sets up for a pile driver, but Paul Diamond with the back body drop of De Beers up and over the top rope for the win. The thing about this, though, Darin, is like when you watch it, it's 1990, and it just feels like it's 1982, 83. It just feels so much like it doesn't feel like 90 or supposed to be around 90. This is like everything is still in slow motion, back in time stuff.
Yeah, I I couldn't agree more with that assessment. The match, yeah, I mean, they work hard. The funny part, you mentioned that drop kick. I mean, here's my question. Why, like you said, we said before, this is tape. He misses the drop kick by
Don't replay it. Why replay it?
Why would you pick that spot to show in slow motion? Which makes it even more obvious that he missed the drop kick by a foot. I don't know. I thought the match was actually going to end when he was attempting to throw Diamond over the top, and he got him in a head scissors. I thought he was going to pull him over, the top rope with the head scissors, which I actually thought would have been kind of cool. But then you have broken neck spot number 2, when Diamond doesn't do it, and he kind of gets jerked into the bottom rope, and good old Ralph goes, "Oh no, he broke his neck." It's terrible. He broke his neck. So we've had 2 people, unfortunately, suffer broken necks in the first 3 matches of the night. Yeah, and then there's one point where De Beers is actually kind of playing to the crowd that's not there.
Oh my God, this is great. Sarge does this, and then Terminator does this in this next match, and I had a note about it then too, but it's so funny when they're doing this.
So I kind of when I watched back, I almost got the feeling that whoever was in charge said, "Hey, you guys, I know there's nobody in the crowd, but you guys got to start to make it look like there are people there." So at one point, De Beers, I forgot what move it was after, but he does something, he gets the guy down, and he starts pointing up at the crowd, "Yeah, I'm the man, I'm the man." And then that really happens a lot. We'll talk about it when we get to the Slaughter match, but I'm sitting there, and it's just you don't really understand at this point, what's happening. Is there supposed to be a crowd there? Are we acknowledging that there's not a crowd there? Are they really watching in bars? Is the bar supposed to be in the building? Are some people confused that there's supposed to be people in the arena? Some people think that there's not supposed to be people in the arena. And the crazy part about this is that it's all taped. So you could have cleaned this up a million different ways, but it's literally it was just one take, get it done. Can you imagine being the guy at ESPN that gets this back then in the VHS in the mail with a letter from maybe Vern Gagne that says, explains the idea of what this is, and you pop it in the VCR and you watch it. And the only thing that I could kind of take away from it is when you start to call the people in and you rewind it to have them come watch it to see how hilariously bad it is that somebody sent you this to possibly air it on ESPN. There's a scene from The West Wing, which is my all-time favorite show, where Sam Seaborn is getting beaten up on a talk show by Ainsley
Come
Hayes.
quick, Sam's getting his ass kicked by a girl. So good.
And Toby goes running out of the office. "Hey, Ginger, get the popcorn." And I can only imagine that that's what was happening at the ESPN offices when this got sent to them, and they had to sit through and watch this to determine if this was a road that they wanted to go down. Maybe when they first came out in 81, 82, and the only content that they had was pie eating contests and World's Strongest Man. Once you get to 1989 and they're starting to cover the NFL draft and stuff, not a really good shot that they were going to be interested in this particular product.
Okay, so AWA historian on the scene with say one nice thing. So the Diamond promo actually gave me one of my biggest laughs of the night, and I'm surprised neither of you mentioned this. He mentions this is the first match of the Team Challenge Series 30 seconds after they show a leaderboard with points.
Yeah.
What?
And there are tons of points.
Now, to be fair, that may as well have just been somebody, saying to Paul Diamond, "Hey, this is the first match of the series,
Or your first match, or whatever it was." Yeah.
And nobody caught it. It's an honest little thing that shouldn't have been a big thing, and there should have been about 9 lines of defense that would have caught it. Now, the other good thing is Paul Diamond was a sneaky good worker that had a long career. He was in AWA. He went to WWF for a couple of years as part of the Orient Express, where they reunited Bad Company. And he went on to the independent scene in the mid to late 90s. He was actually one of the guys that Shawn Michaels had helping him train guys at his training camp in Texas during the 4 years where he was quote-unquote retired. He was also doing independent work under the name of Venom, and he and Shawn Michaels actually worked a match just to see if Shawn could still work. So it's pretty cool tape trader stuff if you can find it. This match is not terrible. The problem is the Colonel De Beers stink with that gimmick.
Yeah.
It mars everything that he touches, and it shouldn't because he's not a bad worker.
No, he's really not. He's a big guy that can move
pretty
pretty well, right?
Everybody drink. Now, the story with Colonel De Beers that I will tell, and I will give parents with kids 5 seconds to get the kids out of the room at this point. Colonel De Beers, back in the 80s, did some independent work with a promoter named Herb Abrams. Herb Abrams is the prototypical wrestling scumbag, addicted to coke promoter. They, as the legend goes, went out to party the night before having a meeting with network executives. Well, Herb Abrams is involved. And if you haven't seen The Dark Side of the Ring on Herb Abrams, go punch it up. It's really good. It's really insightful. And the dude was a freaking lunatic. So the next day, the story goes that Colonel De Beers is so hungover he can't meet with the network officials. Well, he claimed, apparently, and heaven knows where I read this, and this may very well just be one of wrestling's tall tales, but it's too funny not to share. So the story goes that he had to go to the hospital with a quote-unquote scratched retina. One of the wrestlers wondered aloud, I wonder if one of the women had a piercing somewhere. That was wrestling in the late 1980s, and that's, in the nutshell, the Team Challenge series. Because at that point, you get guys who either were not ready for prime time, see also Jerry Lynn, guys who WWF or WCW didn't want to bring back quite yet, see also Sergeant Slaughter, guys who were Vern loyalists like Larry Zbyszko, or guys that were just winding down their careers. In this case, that was Colonel De Beers. He didn't wrestle long after the AWA closed up shop in 1990. The match was fine. Paul Diamond's a decent worker. Colonel De Beers is a decent hand. But Colonel De Beers with that gimmick, it leaves a rotten taste in your mouth because the guy, and to be fair, the 80s were a different time. You could get away with a lot of stuff under the guise of drawing heat. Well, he drew the wrong kind of heat, and he leaned into his gimmick hard. And when you lean into the gimmick hard, you get stuff that does not age well. Ooh, boy.
I almost wonder, when we look at De Beers and what his character was. So about a little less than a year after this, well, it's probably actually about 6 months after this, is when Slaughter reaches out to McMahon about going back to WWF. And McMahon wants him to return as a heel, who originally the angle was going to be that he turns on the United States due to the fact that it has become accepting of Nikolai Volkov, who turned into a babyface. And then the whole, invasion of Kuwait happens, and McMahon comes up with the idea that instead of going that approach, he's going to become an Iraqi sympathizer who likes Iraq because of their brutality, as opposed to the United States, who is a weak, soft country now. And I almost wonder if the Colonel De Beers character had a part in creating the Sergeant Slaughter heel character in WWF.
It's a sanitized version, but there's some crossover.
Absolutely. There's a lot. There's a lot. And he is
an old, like, he to me is someone, when you just think of like the territories, there's a Colonel De Beers in every one. Just like a big guy that was like you look at him, you're like, oh, this guy can go, but he actually can work pretty well, but he has a weird gimmick. He was just a big old school wrestler and a rival of Slaughter's. And speaking of Slaughter, we get to Ralph and Greg one more time. They set up the final match. It's Sergeant Slaughter against the Terminator. And here comes Sergeant Slaughter. Man, does he look massive. And he's got the weird comb-over hair, too, going on. He just looks so strange. The biggest I've ever seen him. There are lots of lockups and power back and forth early. Nice drop toe hold by the Sarge, and then a headlock. Slaughter starts to build up, and he runs off the ropes. The ring is shaking so much, I thought it was going to break. I thought the ring was going to fall apart when Slots hits the ropes back and forth. And he ends up hitting a cross body. Both guys are talking a ton to the non-existent crowd, which is just such a weird dynamic. Sarge asking for the USA chance. He's in control. The Terminator then with a poke to the eyes. He works on the Sarge, who goes headfirst into the ring post. Sarge then with a drop kick and a big clothesline and another one from the second rope. And Sarge wins it with the Cobra Clutch. I mean, it's another one's like, this is better than a lot of Sarge WWF matches that you'll see that are really slow and plotting. At least this is the one thing that the AWA would do, is that when you'd get these shows where they'd have short matches, they weren't bad. They were short. The wrestlers knew they were going to be out there for 5 minutes. That was going to be it. So they worked really hard. They didn't have a lot of rest spots, this and that. They actually worked at a decent pace. And then we get Bischoff ringside with Sergeant Slaughter. This is, I think, what Darin was referencing earlier when Eric says, this match went longer than some of your others, huh, Sarge? What kind of shape are you in? And Sarge says he's in the greatest shape of his life. And he just is so massive and so blatantly not in the greatest shape of his life. So, Darin, Sergeant Slaughter in a match against the Terminator. What'd you think about this?
Yeah, I mean, from a match standpoint, it's probably better
than Hogan Slaughter.
Yeah, I mean, there's a high cross body in the match that's pretty funny. But yeah, I mean, it's not terrible. I did get certain kick. I mean, at points of the match, they build him up to be like this absolute powerhouse where Terminator just bulls into him and Slaughter goes nowhere and just like shakes it off and starts walking right back towards him. So, that's the kind of stuff that you see today. But yeah, I mean, they really build him out to be like this powerhouse. He even does like a standing drop kick at one point that I'm like, wow, like Slaughter getting up with a standing drop kick, is friggin' impressive. But I mean, there's one point in the match where they're circling in the ring and Slaughter walks over to like the ropes and just starts like cheering at the crowd. And he puts his hands up. And then at one point, he cups his ear as if to say to the crowd that's not there, let me hear you. And then he starts clapping his hands and pointing a finger in the air as if he's trying to get the crowd into the match. There's nobody in the building. And it's just gone from just insanity to just complete absurdity. And then the last thing that I get a kick out of, you mentioned the interview where he talks about being in the best shape of his life. One thing that I have to bring up, which really has no bearing, but it's such a crazy show that we might as well mention it. The referee in the last match, what the hell kind of 3 count does he have? It looks, I can't even explain how he's counting on the mat, but it almost looks like he has difficulty lifting his arms. I don't know why I noticed it, because you're so used to seeing like these powerful 3s. This guy looks confused as to what his job is supposed to be. Like he doesn't know exactly what it is he's doing. I don't know. It just adds to the craziness of the match. But look, funny as hell. The last thing that I'll talk about is that they give you, as we get to the end of the production, they talk about you're going to get a look at some of the wrestlers that'll be joining us next week. And one of the wrestlers, and it's actually the last wrestler that you see, is the wrestler that would become to be known as Yokozuna.
Yep.
Who in AWA was known as Coquina Maximus. Now, the thing that's kind of wild about that is that shortly after this, he and Sergeant Slaughter actually have a feud. And you can watch the match between Slaughter and Coquina Maximus. There's a few of them on YouTube. Slaughter is kind of this American hero walking around, handing out the American flags. Now, the one thing that you have to notice, and I'm not saying that he's skinny by any stretch of the imagination, he's probably 375 pounds at this point, talking about Yokozuna. But from the time that we see him in 1990 or so to when he gets to WWF, he weighs 200 pounds more than he did in AWA.
It's insane.
It's crazy that it's even the same person. But, if you're into that kind of stuff and you like to see the origins of some of the guys that got pushes at different times in WWF, you can see early Yokozuna and AWA against Sergeant Slaughter, who, by the way, in 1990, if you go and watch the matches between Slaughter and Yoko, Slaughter looks like he's 75 pounds lighter in those matches than he was in this Team Challenge Series pilot. So he must have saw himself on TV and said, holy crap, I better get back in the gym.
Hey, Andrew, what were your thoughts on this last match and then post-match Slaughter interview?
Okay, first of all, as mentioned last week when Darin asked, who the hell's the Terminator? The Terminator is Marcus Laurinaitis, who was the brother of both Johnny Ace and Road Warrior Animal. So this is the laggard third child of the Laurinaitis family that didn't go on to wrestling glory either in America or in Japan. We mentioned Sarge's size. I mentioned it last week. This was the biggest Slaughter ever got. And Darin, I think you're right. He saw himself after this and went, oh my goodness, I need to lose weight. And he did. He came back to the WWF, it seemed like 40 pounds lighter than this. So that was certainly something to notice, and it wasn't exactly something you had to look hard to see. They slow-mo'd a forearm where Slaughter had the Terminator into the ropes. Slaughter hits this forearm, and Gagne calls it bone on bone, except he's going across the Terminator's chest, and the Terminator doesn't sell it. At all. He basically just stays in the ropes. Okay, so that's what we're slow-moing. And I'm surprised neither of you said this, but Slaughter's big interacting with the crowd moment was actually near the end of the match.
Yes.
Where he looks out over the top rope, pulls his arms together and goes, Cobra Clutch!
Yep.
Right on cue, they cut to these two kids in a sports bar high-fiving. First of all, what sports bar anywhere would let a child, let alone two children, into a sports bar during prime time when this is theoretically airing? Just saying. And these kids are about, 7, 8, 9 years old. They're not, 14, 15-year-old kids. They're legitimate children. And they're in a sports bar, quote unquote, watching this stuff. Sarge wins by submission. We never see the Terminator actually tap out for whatever reason. They do a punch the button moment where we see Slaughter come off the second rope with the clothesline. And then Sarge says, I'm in the best shape of my life with a straight face. And it's just, oh, man. Now, they do show a bunch of other wrestlers in the closing credits talking about people you'll see next week. They show Ox Baker, who was there for a while. They show the Trooper, who would wind up being better known as anybody? Anybody at all?
No.
The Patriot.
Oh, yeah, Del Wilkes. Yeah.
That's Del Wilkes, yep. So he was actually one of the bigger faces in the company during the dying days of the AWA. In the last year of AWA, there was talk of him potentially winning the world title from Larry Zbyszko. That's how big he was in the company / how desperate the company was for top-line baby faces. They also showed one of my favorite named tag teams, the Texas Hangmen. Do either of you know the names of the Texas Hangmen?
No.
Killer and Psycho.
Sounds like Retribution names.
I'm not making this up.
T-Bar and some of the Retribution names that we saw this week.
You'll watch some of the later day AWA stuff, and they're being pushed as this heel big tag team, the Monsters, and their names are Killer and Psycho. And it's even better if you get Lee Marshall on commentary, because you get Tony the Tiger talking about people named Killer and Psycho. The unintentional comedy level is off the charts, and that's a pretty fitting conclusion to what we just watched. The unintentional comedy of this show is so far off the charts because AWA knew they had to try something different.
I applaud them for that. You had to try something out of the box. It's just the fact that you couldn't look at this and immediately go, this is never going to be shown to anybody, right? Whoever put this together, this is never seeing the light of day. Like, we're going to, 20 years from now, have a drink and laugh at who did this.
And not just because what the Beverly Hills Knockouts were wearing would have never flown on any basic cable channel anywhere at that point. This was 1989. We were still several years away from Baywatch at that point. So it's one of the most fascinating watches on the WWE Network. It's one of those things where if you haven't seen it, it's 40 minutes, punch the button, and get ready to laugh. And I am so thankful that Ralph Strangis took some time to join us, to talk some shop about the AWA. We're all wrestling historians / nerds to some degree. That was so fantastic, hearing some of the behind-the-scenes stuff that was going on. I am so grateful to him for being receptive enough to do that. And this was so much fun, not just because I got to hear Darin apparently burst like 3 blood vessels trying to comprehend everything that was going on here. I'm just saying, my historical curiosity juices, they're good for a while, but a couple months down the line, we might be hearing yay, yay, yay for the AWA once again.
So, Darin, think for a second, and then you can sign off. You can sign off. Which Andrew will have you sign off first, because Darin, this is going to be your selection for which show we're going to be watching next. Andrew, let the folks know, what do you have coming up this week? Champagne and JD. Give us your follows, all that information, and then we'll get over to Darin for his pick.
Sure, Andrew Champagne on Twitter. Champagne and JD this week. We're going down under. We're focusing on a couple of races in Australia. We'll have Andrew Hawkins on the show, and that's a big get for us. We're excited about that. JD Fox working some of his magic to bring us one of international racing's most respected analysts. I will also have all of my NFL picks and plays up on andrewchampagne.com. 7-1 through 2 weeks, so I'm off to a good start. In fantasy, not so much. Rest in peace, Saquon Barkley's right leg. That hurt. That really, really hurt for a variety of different reasons. Not just because he's obviously a young, gifted, electrifying running back, but one of my keepers in fantasy football, so my season may well be over 2 weeks in. But still a lot to look forward to. Still a lot going on. Santa Anita obviously opening this week. Preakness coming up next week. Heard the news today that Tiz the Law is not going to be running in that one, but still some talented 3-year-olds going, including Authentic and Art Collector. So lots to be excited about moving forward. And now, hopefully, I've given Darin enough time to recover and find something that will cleanse his palate after what I forced him to swallow.
Yeah. So I really thought about what I wanted to do. I don't want to call it a hate watch, but there is a moment that we have talked about several times in our back and forth of WWE history that we've never gone back and watched, and it is just a pay-per-view that could have been better, and it could have been better for a variety of reasons. One of which being Bret Hart coming off of a great run, being in 2 matches in the pay-per-view that were completely ridiculous. The Undertaker having to go through something again for the second time that was ridiculous. And probably the most asinine ending to a pay-per-view that we have ever seen. Can either of you name the pay-per-view that we're going to watch this week?
Is this the Royal Rumble where he goes into the casket and he loses to the entire locker room pretty much?
No, I actually enjoy that show.
I don't mind that show either. That's 94, right? Actually, I like that Rumble.
That was my initial guess, but otherwise I got nothing.
So we are going to watch the world infamous balloon drop of SummerSlam 1993.
Nice.
Of which
this
you get Bret Hart facing Doink, and then Bret Hart facing Jerry Lawler. You get the highly anticipated rematch of The Undertaker versus Giant Gonzalez. And then you get Lex Luger versus Yokozuna in a match in which Lex Luger does not win the championship, but is hoisted on everyone's shoulders with balloons.
The crowning achievement of his life.
We've talked about it many times, but there's so much politics going on in WWE at that time that we can actually dive into from soup to nuts actually went on with Lex Luger and leading up to that moment.
So much about what that. Remember, that show was supposed to be Bret Hart versus Hulk Hogan.
Yes.
For the title.
Yes.
Instead, 6 months before, that's the plan. Instead, we've got a Lex Luger who's like the now new Hulk Hogan against Yokozuna. How the hell does all of that happen between early 93 to SummerSlam? We have a ton to discuss. That's a good show to pick. I'm glad, because like we saw with this show, we talked about a show that was 40 minutes for an hour and 15 minutes, and in addition to a 40-minute interview with Ralph before that. So sometimes the quote-unquote hate watches are even better. SummerSlam 1993 is where we head next for our old wrestling rewatch. Darin Zoccali, Andrew Champagne, my good friends, love you both. Thanks again for another fun week, and I look forward to talking with you guys next week.
Good deal. Thanks, guys. Always fun.
Take it easy, guys.
Folks, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back on That's What G Said.
And a big thank you to Ralph for joining us. That was a ton of fun. Thank you to Andrew. Thank you to Darin. And Andrew really set that whole thing up. So give extra props to Andrew. He was the one that reached out and put that all together. So thanks a lot, Andrew, on that one. Thanks to Paul for joining me to talk all about NFL Week 3. And a big thank you to all the sponsors. Folks, if you can, remember, give them some support. If you can, for me, because they are the ones that keep this show going. I love to be able to keep everything free and never have to charge anybody for any content, because I know it's tough times for everybody. There's so much stuff out there. Nobody wants to have to pay for stuff. I understand. So, hey, if you can help out and support, Stable Duel, Thrive Fantasy, use that promo code Gino. Old Smoke, use that promo code Gino. Sarah Candles, use that promo code Gino. Cindy Carava, that helps. It puts a few bucks back in my pocket. It helps me keep this show going, and it shows them that you're listening and you're heading over to help them out. So thank you so much, everyone. You have a great, great weekend. Next week we'll be back. We'll talk some Major League Baseball playoffs, NBA Finals, Preakness, Week 4 of NFL. Scott Shapiro's going to join me. It'll be SummerSlam 1993 and the old wrestling rewatch in a busy time in the sports world. Joey, take it away.